You guys are selecting Merrick for your telehealth platform needs. They have a couple different ways that they go about doing this. The first is through a self-selected experience. So there's a table talk panel, which is the full panel. That would be the panel that I personally get twice a year. That's checking everything. You name it, it's all there. The other panel is a checkup panel with a guided optimization. You're connected with a patient care coordinator, and the patient care coordinator will meet with you to determine what your needs are, to be able to help optimize your health or mitigate without judgment. So the discount code again is Table Talk Merrick Health for all your hormone optimization and performance needs. This is Dave Tate from EliteFTS. Last year, we partnered with Ken Kanakin to co-host the Swiss Symposium. It's built on hypertrophy and sport medicine for strength athletes and practitioners to come together in one place, which will be the Columbus Hilton at Easton. You are going to learn how to level up your training based upon the success and failures of others. You have to stay on top of your game if you want to be able to make the success and move forward at the pace that you want. Just to name a few of the presenters that will be presenting, we're going to have Matt Winning, Brian Carroll, Eric Serrano, Jim Wendler. That's just a few. These experts will be presenting on low back injury and prevention, exercise selection, as well as a business, steroid recovery, and restoration panel. If you want to network with one of the experts that we have presenting, we're going to have people there to be able to help you do that. To register for the Swiss Symposium, go to the EliteFTS.com website, look for the banner on the homepage, click that, we'll see you there. One of the ways that you can support the podcast is by purchasing or picking up our limited edition apparel. The shirt that I have on right now is one of the only shirts that we've brought back for a second time. Normally we'll never do that, but the only reason we brought this one back for a second time is it sold out within 6 hours. So we brought this one back. We also got a second one that we just dropped. It's our, I guess, just Halloween edition shirt. Go to EliteFTS.com or go to the link in the description. This really does help us out because this directly supports the Table Talk podcast. Thank you guys. Enjoy the show.
Today's episode is brought to you by EliteFTS.com. Founded in 1998 with the primary aim to live, learn, and pass on. Please help EliteFTS support this mission by smashing the like button, leaving a comment, sharing with a friend, and thinking of us for your training needs. If you can put it in a gym bag or load weights on it, EliteFTS has it.
What's going on? I'm Dave Tate. We are broadcasting from the middle of the EliteFTS weight room, where the underground still thrives and you're part of the crew. It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. All right, guys, we're back with another episode of Table Talk. Today, my guest is Aram Grigorian.
Wow.
Right?
Excellent.
Perfect. Nailed it. Aram is, I've heard your name here and there off and on for a long time, you know, because while I'm in the strength side of the industry, I was in the fitness side of the industry for a long time, but then kind of moved away from that. But where you came on my radar the most was when you did Anthony's Trigger Warning Conjugate podcast. And I stumbled across it because I was looking somebody else up that was going to be a podcast guest. And yours was either right before or right after that. And I started listening to it. And like the first 5 minutes in, I'm like, oh, I got to listen to this fucking thing. And I laughed so hard so many times and can't even tell you why. I didn't go back and listen to that when I listened to a bunch of other ones, just because of how forthright you were on things, which was fucking amazing. Because the fitness world it's different. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. The fitness world is different than the strength world, which is different than the bodybuilding world. They're all these different type of spectrums that they're in. And your background is in finance, right?
Yeah, originally, yeah.
And then in 2012, you started personal training.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing a little bit of like, you know, the side gig training before that, but it wasn't anything formal.
And then it became formal personal training, I believe in New York.
It was just outside Greenwich, Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah, where I met Allie, actually.
Okay, so you did that for a long time working with, I don't like the word gen pop, just like regular pop. Well, when you're, and I don't even like the word personal trainer either, to be honest, and I did it for 10 years. So actually it's not as bad as what it used to be, like the term, because before everybody was like the personal trainer, and the personal trainer was just like the gym bro that graduated high school that knew how to do curls and then had the t-shirt that said personal trainer on the t-shirt. And
yeah, but now everybody's calling themselves a fucking coach because they got one certification over a weekend.
Yeah.
Right. I think the difference between a trainer and a coach is, I'll equate it to finance. If anybody listening understands anything about finance, when you have a trader, somebody who trades like commodities or trades financial products, you have a person who strategizes and says, this is how you're going to trade. That's the person who runs the ship. And then you have the traders who just execute.
Yes.
So a coach is somebody who controls multitudes of variables across a person's life. That's somebody who's got a lot of influence on that individual, versus a trainer who sees somebody for what, maybe 4 hours a week. Like, that's not enough, right? Like, we don't have enough say on how that person, are you going to sleep well? Are you going to eat well? Are you going to move your body outside the gym? Or do you just come in, use me as a hair appointment, and then you fuck off and go on to the next thing and then ruin all the work we did?
See, that's how it was when I was doing it.
It's still like that.
Yeah. Well, we'll jump back to that. I want to stay with what your credentials are. All right. So you started as that, then that personal training moved to more like an online mentor / coach, right? That's
it was a thing of necessity because I moved from Connecticut to California.
Okay.
So I was in person exclusively for the entire time. And I was doing like 6 to 7 sessions a day, 7 days a week, all at a private facility, or I would go to people's houses. And then breakup, COVID, bunch of bullshit happened. And I'm like, okay, why am I living in Connecticut?
And then through that whole time, at some point you started doing events as well.
Events started in 23. That was this year. So,
okay.
Yeah. And that was just because I saw a void in the space. I'm like, I can't keep going to these events and spending all this money and getting nothing out of it.
Okay.
So,
which is interesting, right? We'll stay on that. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds with that, but I want to stay on that because the education that you received for being a trainer / coach, whatever we want to call it, helping people achieve their goals. Let's just go that route. Was not formal because your formal education is in finance.
Well, I went down like the NASM route.
Yes.
Like I went like NASM CPT. I went precision level 1, NCI level 1, all that stuff. But like I don't know. The way I think about it is like all the best that I've learned from were boots on the ground.
Yes.
And I think to me, like you can have all the credentials in the world. If you have no idea how to apply it because you've never worked with anybody, what's the point?
Yes. But part of that is going to all the different conferences, seminars, you know, symposiums and so forth, which I experienced that same thing when I graduated with a degree that was in exercise science, nutrition, and more for athletes. But then I found myself with Gym Pop.
Yep.
And what an interesting wake-up call that was. Because every gym I trained in was like a meathead gym. And all of a sudden it was, oh, shit. So I started going to every personal training seminar and so forth, and ran into a clusterfuck. You know, I don't really know how to explain it. There'd be like a whole symposium or seminar on fucking stability balls. You know, another one on
kettlebell swings for 4 hours.
Yeah, there were kettlebells, and there was SAQ, and you know, all these different things. And every now and again, I would find like you'd see that like the meathead. There'd be like 1 or 2 meatheads you like catch their eye, and then you knew the person you were going to hang out with for the 3 days. The rest of the time, and then together you would kind of disseminate the information that was being put out, because the information that was being put out, and it's probably kind of still true today, if you know enough about what's going on, you can pull nuggets from everybody that's speaking and then apply it. But from a broad sense, anybody that's speaking is like, man, do you even train anybody? And that's what I kept running into. Is it was odd because I was presenting too. Shortly thereafter, I started presenting, but it was obviously you don't train people, because if you did, you couldn't do what you're actually asking us to do, you know, which was interesting in that part. And then from the sales perspective and the marketing perspective, it's like that shit right there is not going to work either. You know, so when you say there was a void, there is definitely a void, because even with the sales ones that I would, if you want to call it that, like the business ones, right? Which is when you kind of have a little bit of a business background. Oh God, this had to be really eye-opening for you. When you have a business background and you're listening to some of these people speak about business, it's so fucked up that it's just upsell. It was just mind numbing. But you navigated it well, because I looked at the certifications, if you want to call it that, training that you had. You picked good ones. You know, the precision nutrition is a good one. You know, these other ones are good ones, and it can complement the hands-on, you know, that you are doing. The broader question is, why did you move from finance, which financially you were doing well, into that personal training space?
Finance was just a very destructive field for me. Like for lack of better terms, I like to party.
Yeah.
I used to like to party a lot. And when in that like Wolf of Wall Street, New York Metro, Greenwich, New York area, like your shelf life is you work as much as you can in a short period of time. You make as much money as humanly possible. You party your ass off, and then hopefully you either run your own shop or run your own book, and then just kind of just fall off into the wayside, and then you're just going to count your money for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I got really good at the partying part and managing showing up to work and still being functional. When I was like 24, 20, like I'm an immigrant from Russia with no money, with poor parents who didn't understand anything about money. So I came here, and then at 22 years old, graduating college, it's like, here's your starting offer at $60,000. That was massive money. That's 2007.
Yeah.
Right. Like that for a kid who's never had money, whose parents never had money, like a $60,000 salary felt like $1 million to me.
Yeah.
And then within 3 years, 60 turned into 95, turned into 120 with $30,000 bonuses. And now we're on flights to Miami every weekend. We're going to strip clubs. We're doing blow. And there's every weekend. And I'm like, there's no way that I can survive and still be good at my job or get better at my job if I don't start to fix the way that I live my lifestyle. And then our company got bought out by all sorts of different banks. We got chopped up into different divisions, and then they laid us all off, which is a fucking blessing in disguise. Because it was right at the point where I'm like, if I keep going, I have to go all in on this thing. But if I can get out now, I can start to pursue something else, which everybody always told me, like, you should be a trainer.
Yeah.
Because it was something I loved to do. And I was kind of like the guy at the office who was like, eat this or do this at the gym. And I was talking to normal, average people who didn't know what to do. And I had a knack for being able to take something very complicated that was scientifically complex and just turn it into something very usable for somebody who was like a 3-year-old. So like, carbs aren't bad. It's the amount of carbs that you eat are bad. Or food is fine and you shouldn't be afraid of it, but you should be afraid of it if you can't control it.
Yeah.
So I started dumbing stuff down into very digestible tidbits, and then I started coaching people in the same way with no bullshit, direct, like, this is how you're supposed to do it.
So you're a meathead. I mean, you're still a meathead. So were you a meathead then at the time before? Actually, while you were in the financial service industry, were you a meathead then?
Yeah, I mean, it started in high school. Like, I wanted to lift with the high school football team because they were the kids that were getting girls. And I was like the kid that got no attention from any woman ever. So I'm like, well, fuck it. If I lift with these guys and I get big and jacked, then girls will start paying attention to me. And then I realized I'm stronger than all the football guys. I suck at football. So I played.
Yeah.
Let's call it. I was on the field, but I didn't contribute. Yeah. But in the weight room, I was always in the top 3 of anybody on any of the big 3 lifts.
Did you get the girls though?
No, not really.
Yeah, so they didn't really work either.
Girls don't give a fuck about how much you lift.
Yeah, I know that.
Any dude that is jacked or has any type of strength knows that they get way more male attention than they do female attention.
Yeah.
Always. It's like, yo, bro, what do you bench? How'd you get so big? No chick is like, oh my God, you have a 450 pound back squat. You're so hot. Like, they don't give a shit.
So this is intriguing. So when you're in the financial service industry, how big were you?
I was probably like 185, 190, like busting out of my polo shirts. And at that point I was like half sleeved.
Yes.
So I looked weird. Like,
did that work against you?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, it was getting pretty liberal at that point. Like, people didn't really give a shit because our company had a seat on the Mercantile Exchange in New York, but then everything went paper and electronic. So we weren't like physically trading anymore. So we didn't have a physical presence. Like, people didn't come to our office. Everything was done on computers. There was no like actual trading floor. So like, I just sat at a desk all day, like a desk jockey, and I could wear whatever the fuck I wanted.
Okay.
So, but I still looked weird because most people either were super, super skinny or very, very fat and out of shape. Yes. So here I am, like 23 years old, jacked, going to the gym in the morning before work, going to the gym at night after work, not eating what everybody else ate, bringing my own lunch or ordering my own food, like having totally different habits. And people are like, why do you look like you do? I'm like, well, look at the way you sit here and do things and look at how I do it. And that was it. And that basically just the wheel started to turn. Is like, this is what everybody's missing because they're just not implementing these basics on a daily basis.
So when you made that jump, your lifestyle at the time is spending a lot of money too. So I'm going under an assumption, which could be false, that there's not a whole lot of savings.
Zero.
When you made the jump into it. So you're going from high income to a low income.
Oh, do you want to know how low it was?
Yeah.
So 2012 was my best year at that point ever. I had gotten a $30,000 exit bonus. So basically, like, when the company shut down, they're like, you have 90 days to close out all of these books, and then you're going to get a $30,000 retention bonus to stay so you don't leave, so all this work gets done by you guys because you started it, and then you're done. So March of 2012, I was laid off officially, and then I bought the NASM book literally that month.
Yeah.
And then I studied it in a coffee shop in Jersey where one of my ex at the time was working, and I finished the book in 2 weeks, and I tested and I got the cert, and then by June I was working. So from March to June, I had a little bit of severance. I chewed all that up. I put it all into education. And then I went from making $125,000 that year to making $8 an hour rolling up eucalyptus fucking soaked towels at Equinox Gym in Greenwich and handing them out to housewives.
Okay. Yeah, this is where I want to go, because there could be a lot of people listening that want to jump into this career or want to just change careers. And a mistake I think they make that people disagree with me with is they try to wait until everything is financially solid for them to be able to do that, but then it never happens because they're never financially solid. Where if you jump in and you're forced to have to make it work, then you find a way to make it work. Did you have to change your lifestyle at the time? Did you have to move, all those things to be able to?
Yeah, I was,
because obviously you're not going to Miami and doing blow.
No, that shit kind of stopped. I leaned into my relationship a little bit more. Like, we were already a lot rocky at that point, but like, I basically got to a point where I realized, like, I have to get really good at this in order to not drag out this very long learning curve. And the way that the structure worked at Equinox Gym, it's a very big Globo, big box gym, but it's really high end. So like $170 a month membership, like full towels in the gym, all these beautiful bath products. Like, people would live there. Like, my clients would show up at 8 for a session and they would stay until 1 in the afternoon.
So how did you get hired? Because you don't have a background in that.
Well, I had NASM at that point. So I had my entry level cert that they needed.
Okay.
And then I looked the part because they wanted to hire like semi-attractive people that looked weird or different or whatever. Like, they hired like big jack guys, or they hired like sexy big titted women.
Okay.
And that's what they did, because they wanted to appeal to all the people that were on the floor. So like, all the 45-year-old moms from Greenwich were looking at me like a fucking prime rib.
Sure.
And I was the one that was walking around. Hey, Mrs. Jones, here's a towel for you. Like, let's go do some squats.
Then how did you go from the $8 locker room attendant, more or less fitness instructor, I guess would be the term at that time, right? Or was it? So the way it worked is you got a blue shirt, which meant you were like a floor trainer. Yeah.
Meant you just walked around and just you paid your dues. And then when you graduated from a blue shirt to a black shirt is when you went from like tier 1 to 2 to 3, and then they had like a 4.
What moved you from the blue shirt to the black shirt?
I just never stopped working. Like,
no, from their metrics.
Oh, credentialing. So they had something called EFTI, which was Equinox Fitness Training Institute. It was 150 hours of education. It was actually very, very good.
Yeah.
Like, if anybody's listening to this and you're trying to transition to become a trainer, if you can get a job at Equinox, do it, because you're going to get a free education that's 150 hours long that includes all your biomechanics, all of your PT, corrective exercise, everything you would ever need, way more than what you'll get at NASM.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a no-brainer. And they taught me everything I needed to know for that specific. But then I did all my own research on the side. I would reach out to people I knew. And then I just started showing up. Like, I would be the first one in at 5 a.m. and I'd be the last guy to leave at 10. And I would go home in the middle of the day because I lived 20 minutes away. I'd eat lunch. I'd come home. I'd pack my food. I'd spend all day there.
Yeah.
And it was because I wanted people to see me there, so that when they had a choice of what trainer to pick, they would pick me, because they were like, well, this kid's always here.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. It's just, I would walk around the floor. I would see somebody doing a lat pull down. I'd walk over. I'd pull their elbow in. I'd bring it to their rib cage. I'm like, you feel that more? Cool. That's how you do a lat pull down. Like, nobody's ever showed me that before. I didn't push training on I didn't sell shit. They came to me. And that's exactly how I coach to this day. I don't sell anything. I don't offer shit. You see me online. Like I'm talking about really daily stuff that's average, and I don't sell anything because I don't want people to think that I'm a salesperson. I'm a coach. I'm an educator.
How long did it take you to build up to the point where I look at billable hour? I guess it's the financial service. How long did it take you to get to the point where it was, say, 30 billable hours? Was just probably 50 hours being in the gym?
So we all got ranked. I think there was 33 trainers at the time. So basically the top 5 were hitting all their bonuses, and they were making like good money. Like you had to hit like 42 sessions in 2 weeks to be eligible for their bonus structure. And I was doing that within 3 months.
Okay. And there's similarities between your story and mine, so I'm interested in this. But for a couple reasons. How did you go about acquiring the clients outside of just walking around correcting technique and stuff like that?
That was it.
That was it. So they were just coming to you because
they weren't even
looked apart.
I was coming to them because I'd see them do stupid shit on the floor. These are just general members that were there that didn't have trainers.
Yeah.
So Equinox, the way that their model was set up was basically like every time a new member signed up, they would get a free evaluation from a trainer, and you would do like in-body scan and whatever else. And I kind of told them, like, this is silly because people don't even know what they're buying, and you're basically pushing them into personal training when they don't even know what their goals are. Maybe they don't even want a trainer. Maybe they're just there to go to the gym. And what I started noticing is I'm like, there's a lot of people doing a lot of stuff biomechanically incorrect. And what I would ask them is I'd be like, oh, that's a cool exercise. Why are you doing that? And then 9 out of 10 times they'd have no clue. I saw it on TV. I saw somebody else doing it. YouTube showed me, Instagram showed me. And then I would just start to offer suggestions. And then I just walk away. It's almost like if you've ever hit on a group of girls at a bar, you walk up to them, you pick the one that you're not interested in, you start talking to her, the other ones start getting weird, and because they're jealous, they're like, well, why isn't he talking to me? And then the second you walk away, they start walking to you. Yeah. So I just planted the seed, and I allowed them to start doing some critical thinking. And then they realized, oh shit, I don't know how to apply this information. I need help. He's the guy.
Interesting. Here, I'm kind of blown away a little bit because when I went into that, it was a corporate fitness center. So kind of the same type of clientele. And again, I'm coming from one funny story, which I've told several times, is I came from gyms that 135 was on the bar at all the times.
Yeah, you just wouldn't come off.
And nobody does that anymore, which is kind of a good thing. But the plate just stayed on. And and this is a lot of experience getting into that because gym management and doing the same thing, but not training, because the gyms I trained or worked at, because I'd work at a place and I would train someplace else. But the gyms that I would work at, that's kind of what the job was when you were working there, is somebody's fucking up, you spot them, you fix stuff like that. And so one of my first clients that have to do the fitness testing, which I'll get to that in a minute, because interested to hear your thoughts, because I think people who are getting into the industry now, this can benefit them tremendously. You had to do the stupid fitness exams, which there's a reason for that. You don't want people to die. But the first real client I had, I just throw a fucking plate on each side, and I kind of helped them get it out, and I could tell, ooh man, this looks a little shady. You it'll probably just get like 5, something like that. Just staple, man. I put it,
buried.
Yeah,
you're doing it.
No, I'm spotting. They didn't kill themselves. I'm spotting. I'm close. I'm spotting it, and then I put it back in. I think I had to put like fucking dimes on each side, and then after that, everybody else that I was helping for that day was just machines and stuff. Yep. But I went home to my wife, and I'm like, man, you're not gonna believe this shit. I had this dude that had to be over 200 pounds. Fucking guy could not bench 135. No, that's not what I said. He couldn't even do a warm-up set. And then when I said that to myself, it's something like ringed in my head, like, man, you're a fucking idiot. Like, that was his max set. And that's when I said, I need to start learning how to train like Gen Pop. Yeah. But when you mentioned the fitness evaluations, we had all this tests we had to do, and it's probably 10 years prior to when you started. So I had to do body fat measurements and a sit reach, stupid shit.
Do you guys do calipers?
Yes.
I hate calipers.
Well, I can go on rants about that. And so I had to do all that. And then after a while, I realized, what we're doing is you have these people coming into this facility who either their doctor suggested they have to come in, or they're frustrated because they're now fat. They don't know why they got fat, which is a conversation in itself. And then all I'm doing is reinforcing just how out of shape they are. Like, this is not helping
The
them.
ugly reminder.
Yeah, it's like, can we just like take their blood pressure, like just do that, and then just walk on the treadmill and talk to them? Because you can see within a few minutes of them just walking on the treadmill, they're going to die. They're in awful shape. And so once I was able to get out of the fitness assessment part, and other people would, because there was 4 trainers, other people could do that, then I was able to actually market or sell, I guess is what you would say. And the way I went about it was kind of like what you were doing, but I'm terrible with names. So I'd have a notebook in the little office. So I would introduce myself, get their name, and then fortunately there, I don't know, did they do laundry at Equinox? Fortunately, they did the laundry. So there's laundry bags and shit. So I could write like Sarah, orange shirt, green shorts, I could write things down. And then the next time I'd come in, it's like, hey, Sarah, how you doing? And you just make small talk, find out she's got kids that play soccer. Yep. Hey, Sarah, how'd Johnny do in the soccer game last weekend? Like, well, how do you remember that? I'm like, I'm cheating. I got a book right back,
And her friends don't even give a shit.
Yeah. And you just build that rapport, and you just give pointers here and there. And then even though I didn't have any client, I had like one client for the day. It's like, hey, Sarah, I got an hour open. Are you interested? Yeah. And just having me help you with a session. And then,
let's do a free session.
Yeah. Within same type of story, within 3 months, I'm at 40 billable hours.
It's a lot.
And all the other trainers are like, and I'm 308 fucking pounds, purple, bloated power lifter, right? Bald head, goatee. And they're like, how in the hell are you doing this? And I'm like, well, you guys are trying to sell after this assessment. They're in terrible shape. You just depressed the living shit out of them. And now you're going through these sales tactics that you learn at like Bally's. It's how much I can remember it because I had training on this too. You would walk them through how much money they were spending getting out of shape. So how much does the coffee cost you? How much does this cost you? Because the reasons why they would not sign up were always either time commitment, spouse, or money.
Yep.
Right. So you had to combat all those objections before you would actually hand the pen and say, sign this over, which it's probably not a bad thing because I did get free sales training. You just kind of have to modify it down a little bit, where I think a lot of the trainers that even in my time there in post and probably even today, just assume because they have the credentials, people should just sign up.
Right. I'm the authority figure.
Yeah. Or because they're built well, they should sign up, but they don't realize you have to do that grunt work. And being in a club, while people will bash it and hate it, I think there's 2 routes. You can do that or go to like a personal training center. The personal training center, they're just going to feed you clients.
Right.
So you're not going to learn the communication to be able to actually build your own client base. Where in a club like Equinox, where I was, you have 100 people or more throughout the whole day that are on the floor, mainly just doing cardio. They never leave the cardio machines. That is your base, that you can market to. And I'm always interested to know people that have gone that route, how they build that base, because the churn rate, because when I was managing trainers after that, my God, because you work your way up. Because when you're first in there, you're like, man, I'm never going to be good at this. Because there's always the one trainer that's like killing it. Yeah. Always. You're like, man, maybe one day, I hope, but you don't realize how fast you can do that. But then after you're there for a little bit, you realize like 20 people have come and gone. Yep. And it's not because they weren't good. They just didn't know how to communicate with people or were force things down their throat. But I have to admit, one of the reasons, well, there are many reasons I got out of it, but one of the reasons I got out of it is I started to find I was spending more time watching ESPN, right? Like somebody's over here doing leg extensions, and they might have done 7 sets where it should have been 3. I'm just not fucking paying attention.
You're checked out.
I'm just gone. Like,
well, because you become like a rep accountant. Yeah. Because and the problem is because there's no emphasis on educating the individual when they come into that session. And I always equate it to a hair appointment. Like everybody's 5 minutes late. They don't warm up. There's no stretching. There's no foam rolling. There's no dynamic warm up. There's nothing. It's like, oh, I'm coming for my drop off for my kids, but then I have a yoga class at 10 that I got to make. And this, like, okay, so basically you're coming in here to go through the motions for 40 minutes tops, which half of that's going to be you resting. So you're going to get 20 minutes of work. Then you're going to leave. Then you're going to go eat brunch, which you're going to fuck that up. And then you're going to drink it tonight. And then all of the stuff that we did is gone.
Mm-hmm.
So as opposed to doing that, and this is why, like, even now with my personal training, I'm hesitant to take people on unless they understand what they're getting themselves into. Because I'm very clear about, like, if you hire me, you're not just hiring a rep accountant. I'm not just going to sit here and count your reps for you. I'm going to teach you why you should move your body in certain directions. I'm going to try to connect your mind to your muscles. I'm going to try to get you to understand how to do this shit so you can become autonomous, because I don't want you to be a fucking client for life.
Well, I think that's the goal, though, is to kind of, and I think you kind of defined it when we started, is to find a way to move from being that personal trainer to being a coach, right? Because then when you're the coach, you can have some authority, I suppose.
It's influence. It's
influence over all those other areas that need to be done outside of the gym. And that's rough when you have a client that just comes once a week, or, you know, the twice a week person, or whatever it is, because they're there. I worked on half-hour sessions because they can do their own fucking cardio. And so it was just the strength work, right? And cancellations are a thing, right? So I figured, you know, 2 1-hour cancellations, or even 3 in one day, that's a big hit.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if they're all half hours, 3 cancellations in one day, no big deal.
Right.
You know, and I can bill more for the half hour than the hour. So I kind of figured all that out. Whereas I believe with my bias is, if somebody wants to be a personal trainer and move in the industry, is to go into the club setting first.
Absolutely.
And because in the other one, I think you might learn more, you know, if it's a more professional, strict personal training or sport training center or something. I think you'll learn more, maybe, because whoever's running it, you know, has a program in place and all the metrics, and there's tracking and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think you're going to learn the right things for when you first start.
No. And that's the problem, I think, now, is because look at the online space. It's gotten to a point now where there's no barrier to entry. There's 25-year-old business coaches out there who literally were born yesterday, and they're like, well, I could teach you how to get to 10K in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's removed all of the grit and the hard work away from a business that really should be client facing and personal. So we've taken the personal out of personal trainer, and we've made it into a used car salesman. That's what it is now. I mean, I go to these fucking business conferences, and it's 26-year-old kids who are living at home with mommy and daddy, who, if they couldn't hack it as a trainer, they can go work at mommy and daddy's company tomorrow and they would be no worse off.
Yeah.
So they're doing this because they're passionate and they love it, because they like to lift weights. Like, I like to lift weights is not a credential.
Mm-hmm.
I look like I'm a lifter does not equate to, you know, having to teach this shit to people.
Would you say if you want to make a career out of this, you have to start working with people in person first?
Do it for free. I mean, if you're, whether you're an online coach or you want to do this in person, like, it sucks. Is like, the easy way is tell your family, like, hey, I'll help you for free. They'll never going to comply because they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So, like, go and put it out there and just start reaching out to maybe friends of friends or people in your network that you might know, and just start literally giving away knowledge and practical information for free, and then train them in person for, like you said, half-hour sessions.
Well, the way things have evolved over a period, or over the last 2 decades or last decade, do you think you can start online?
You can. I see it all the time. It happens constantly. But the problem is with online, you're vying and jockeying for position for likes, shares, and views. So if your content doesn't pop, or you don't have a big enough audience, and you're kind of talking to those same 500 people all the time, well, cool. That's 500 people that you don't have. But you have to be very loyal to serving those 500 people. I think right now everybody's trying to get more followers, more content produced, but I'm like, the content you're producing is no different than what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
You don't have an authentic voice. You don't even believe what you're saying, and you have no idea how to actually present it in a way that's helpful, because all we are as coaches is just perpetual problem solvers. You have a problem. I know how to get you from A to B slightly quicker than you'd be able to do it on your own, right? Like, you can go change your own oil. You can cut your own grass. You can cut your own hair, but you hire people to do that shit because it saves you time and money in the long run. So circumvent the process and hire me, because I've done the work and I can just show you the quicker way to do it, but you have to be willing to participate. And that's the thing that people don't communicate enough on. Like, my number one thing with all my clients is, like, you are going to be in the trenches with me. We're a team. If you have a shit day, I have a shit day. If you have a good day, I have a good day. We're going to do this together, but you got to be willing to do the work. Because I'm just in the passenger seat with the map. You're driving the car. You got to drive. Your foot's on the gas pedal. Your foot's on the brake. You got to figure this shit out, because at some point you won't be able to afford me forever. You're not going to want to have me forever. And if you need me forever, I've not done my job properly.
Yeah. All right. Well, the reason I'm asking that is because it's, if I see the online coaches that are working to prep people for powerlifting and stuff like that, I don't personally think you can start that way. You have to start working with people in the trenches first.
I think so. Where
if it is, just fitness-based training, just getting people in shape, it might be, that's what I'm asking. It might be different, because then all of a sudden having the perfect fucking squat, bench, and deadlift technique-wise doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter if they fucking squat or do any leg movement. They just need to move.
Yeah. I mean, always number one, assess the starting point. Like, what are you trying to achieve, and what history do you have leading up to today? Like, if you're somebody who's got 4 or 5 years of training under your belt, and you're a competitor, you don't need as much hand holding as somebody who's got 5 hours of training under their belt. So maybe you can work with a relatively new online coach and still be able to make progress and be able to gain strength and mass and whatever, because the basic principles still apply. You just need to ratchet up the intensity. But for somebody who doesn't know anything and is wet behind the ears, if you're a brand new coach, I don't think you have the skill set and the systems in place to support that individual solely online.
Yeah.
Because even today, I flew to Columbus yesterday. I have a client who lives in Dublin. I've never met her in person. This morning was the first time I ever saw her in person. We did an hour session at Planet Fitness that she goes to. And I was just playing with her form. I was playing with her technique. I was moving her feet around, her elbows. I was having her feel different things. In that hour, she got more out of that hour than she's gotten in 6 months of me just reviewing her feedback through video. Yeah. Because you can't put your hands on people online. You can't really actually be there and show them hey, and failure means you're not getting your limb past half the range of motion. When you fail, that means I literally can't get my elbow back into my hip.
Yeah.
So if you can't, that means that I've now failed to lift and I have to let go. And now it's time for me to rest, as opposed to her at home jamming away, thinking that she's in failure when realized she's just left 4 or 5 reps in the tank.
Yeah.
It's hard to see that shit.
Where my mind's kind of got kind of being blown just a little bit is, I would say that's more like an intermediate, right? So, but if you're dealing with a beginner, I'm actually kind of thinking if it's somebody that's helping them online, granted, not powerlifting training, none of that kind of stuff, but just online, because they're found themselves being, we'll have some rants on this later, found themselves being 40 and out of shape. Can't figure out why.
Sure.
At this moment, I'm sitting here thinking it might actually be better to have somebody that's online, because there'll be more touch points.
Yes.
Because if you're just working with that personal trainer in the club twice a week, you're only going to see them twice a week. There's that accountability is not as high as if you're working with somebody online and you're getting a text every now and again saying, hey, what the fuck did you just eat today?
Yeah. I mean, I'd be like she's a good example. Perimenopausal, late 40s, early 50s, has worked out from home most of her life with dumbbells and barbells, and not with a high level of proficiency. Yeah. Just has dumbbells and barbells at home because it's convenient. Has the gym membership and never uses it because she doesn't want to leave the house. Relatively high body fat, relatively low muscle mass, hormone issues, everything that you can have stacked against you is there. So for her, we have to work on lifestyle optimization. How do we get you to sleep better? How do we get you to eat better? Because at the end of the day, just you moving your body is already calorie expenditure to some point. Mm-hmm. It's net positive anyways. It's specific calorie expenditure? No. But we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Let's move the big rocks first. And the big rocks for most people are get the basics right. Walk as much as you can, more than you sit. Drink enough water, eat food that's digestible and in enough quantity to fuel you, but not make you fat. Have a morning routine, have a nighttime routine, and have some semblance of what direction you're going. If you can nail those 5 things, there's no direction that you can't pivot into if you want to. Mm-hmm. So for her, the nuance of a lat pull down or the nuance of a rear foot elevated squat is cute and fun, but she doesn't have the basics down. She doesn't know that if she doesn't hinge her hips, she's going to be more quad dominant. She doesn't know these things. So for her to like practice that ad nauseum for me telling her doesn't mean shit, because even if she does do that perfectly and then she fucks up the other 5 pillars, she's not going to get results anyway.
Yeah.
So what's the point? Don't drive the nuance, build the base. That's what 99, even like your population of people, like most strength guys started because they were meatheads, because they wanted to get jacked, because they wanted to lift weights, but they missed out on all this other fundamental education. Yes. What are the biomechanics of a squat? Like femur lengths, shin angles, all that kind. Like they don't give a fuck about that. They're like, just put more weight on the bar, and then what?
Yeah.
At what point do you just not be able to load any more weight, and now you're starting to use other parts of your body to compensate for a lift that should be doing with your posterior chain?
Yeah.
They don't understand that because they never took the time. They just worked their way through it. Now, effort can get you a significant part of the way, but it's not going to finish the equation ever.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I wanted to have you out, and we spoke a little bit beforehand about this, is when you are dealing with, see, our demographic, the way I would define that is people that put training as one of their top 4 priorities, which is high.
Yeah.
You know, that's up there. So it matters. And they'll know the nuance. They'll know the techno, well, more so than those that are just gen pop going to the health club just to get in shape,
right?
Or people that just want to get in shape. But where they struggle and where they run into these roadblocks is when it comes into their health, and not their health because they're just eating so shitty they're not recovering, but that's part of it. But their health from the standpoint of just getting them to understand doing 10 minutes of cardio with a regular training 3 or 4 times a week will help them recover better from their main training sessions. And they'll have every excuse in the world why they can't fucking do that. Or the nutrition aspect being as well, because they train hard and all that, the nutrition doesn't matter because all they need to be is in a little bit of a calorie surplus. And that's fine. That's cool. They're going to make progress from that. Or if they're trying to lose weight, you know, they have 2 worlds. It's like chicken and rice and that's it, you know, or just a fucking disaster. And that's it, where it's almost mind-boggling because the things that should be very simple, you know, for them with the commitment that they have, putting it as a top priority, is so hard for them to do because they haven't developed the habits associated with those things, or they don't give themselves, they don't know how to pivot around if they binge, you know, and lose their shit and then figure, instead of just saying, oh, I lost my shit, just get back on track. Like, well, fuck it. I guess this week's just a bust. I'm just going to keep losing my shit the whole week. Where those little things they can get away with for a while, you know, say from 20 to whatever, 28, 25. There's a lot of shit teenagers to, I'm just going to throw it out, 25.
Sure.
There's a lot of shit they can get away with. A lot, you know, going, and I did. We all did.
Of course we did.
You know, getting fucked up and still being able to train and doing all this. They can get away with that until they can't.
Yep. And
then when they can't, the excuses that I hear just on the ability, why they can't sleep and all these different things is through the fucking roof. Where your content, this is what was cracking me up about, is these things when people will have these excuses, or even some of the posts that you'll make about certain things. While it's targeted towards that population, it should be read by everybody, especially the older they get as well, because recovery is going to change as you get older as well.
Well, and how about the fact that, like, I don't give a shit if you're 1,000-pound squatter. Like, at some point, you're going to get to the end of the road. And you have to have a plan for what's going to happen after. Because if your identity is rooted into me being this big jacked animal that can lift all this weight, nobody but you gives a fuck. Like, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, strength athletes are not very well respected in the globo sense.
No.
Like, we're a very niche group of, like, maniacs that love each other, and we jerk each other off about what we can do. But, like, nobody outside of that gives a fuck. Like, there's bigger problems in the world than how much you can bench, squat, and deadlift. But at some point, you're not going to be able to bench, squat, and deadlift as much as you used to. So are you going to completely mentally fall apart now? And are you going to become a mental midget, and you're going to ruin all your relationships and then ruin your life because you don't have this thing anymore? So if that's the only place of fulfillment that you have, you got to look in the mirror and understand that the world is bigger than the bar.
Yeah, there's a lot that happens too. which is why you're here, because they'll hit that. I went through it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, it was very fucking visible for anybody that follows my shit over the years. You know, that stops and all of a sudden it's like, fuck.
Yep.
Now, and I knew, it's like, now what? Well, I guess I'm just going to get shredded, right? And that's not the answer, because then it's just up, down, up, down, up, down until you figure out you just need to live more holistically, or, you know, find that middle ground where everybody kind of needs to find, but they don't. And when you're tied into that identity that a lot of them get tied into, that identity of how they're training also allows them to get away with more shit.
Yeah, there's a lot more physical and longevity and health neglect, because they use either training volume or training intensity as a buffer for all the other bullshit that's going on. Like, if you, and let's be honest, and I'm sure you can probably speak to this, but like, there's a big difference between a powerlifter and a bodybuilder.
Oh yeah.
A bodybuilder can get away with, usually, let's say a bodybuilder's in a growth phase, probably can get away with a lot more calories than a powerlifter can, because a powerlifter is really taxing CNS more than tissue.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're bench squatting and deadlifting, you're not really hitting any specific targeted tissue. Like, yes, you're hitting some chest, but you're also hitting anterior shoulder and tricep, which is a lot different than me doing 4 sets of triceps.
Mm-hmm.
So, and let's be also honest, most powerlifters are not doing the accessories that they should be doing to support their big 3. So what happens? I'm eating all this food to grow and get strong, but you're not doing any fucking volume to warrant the food that you're eating. So the car is sitting in the garage, but you're putting $400 worth of gas in it, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is a really big problem. This is why a lot of powerlifters get sloppy and fat, and then they have to like rewind the clock and try to get leaner, which then is going to damage their performance, because now they're trying to lift in a calorie deficit, and that doesn't work. So like, it's this vicious cycle of like, I did it wrong, and now I'm backpedaling, and then I do it wrong again, and then I get hurt, and then I never really rehab the injury, and then I get hurt again. And it's just like this perpetual 10, 15-year cycle until finally, fuck it, I'm 45, I can't do this anymore. And then it's just like a lifestyle of high fat, high sugar, no lifting anymore, no movement. And now before, you know, they're 60 and everything is shot and it's over. And it could have been a 65-year career if they did it right.
Let's take that first roadblock that you just mentioned and let's walk through it. So you have the lifter that runs into that, to where they're too fat or whatever. They want to get leaner for whatever point it's going to be. They got hurt or whatever. And the go-to answer that I typically see is they jump onto a bodybuilding diet, right? And that's not sustainable, especially for them, you know, because it's too vast of a change. So if you were working with somebody that was in that spot, right? So say they're 250 pounds, so 242. So like a 242 lifter that cuts a little bit. It's like 250 and not sloppy fats, 20%, right? If caliper 20%. So let's put it that way, because I know that a little bit more. I don't even want to say that, because most people aren't going to understand the difference between calipered. No visible abs.
Right.
Okay. So no visible abs. Maybe a bicep vein. That's about it. Actually, that probably not even that with a pump.
Yeah.
Right. So kind of that's where it's at, you know, somewhat of a belly, you know, powerlifting type of belly type thing. How would you walk them through? Here's how we're going to bring your body weight down in a sustainable way.
So immediately I look at, like, on the big 3 spectrum, what are you the worst at? So let's say, like, you know, let's say you're a great bencher, you're a great squatter, but your deadlift sucks. Well, let's not hammer bench and squat anymore, because those are lifts that you're good at. So we're going to keep up the minimal amount of volume just to keep that weight and that achievement up there. So maybe you're doing maybe you're trying to PR once every 8 weeks or 10 weeks in a mesocycle, and you're just trying to get that big lift to stay high enough. So we're going to put most of our achievement into the deadlift, but because we know that we want to create some type of a calorie deficit, we're going to apply more volume accessory wise to the other stuff, and then install some cardiovascular work. Because I'm not going to bury your food sources immediately. What I'll do is I'll probably clean them up, and I'll probably take a look at and see, like, how many meals a day are you eating? Are you eating mostly stuff that you cook? Are you digesting it well? Are you having all sorts of gastric issues? Like, are you walking around like a bloated balloon, or are you feeling pretty good? So evaluate volume of work and evaluate food quality first before changing any amount of any of it. And then if you need more volume, cool, we can just do a couple of bodybuilding style accessory movements to support the lifts that you are already good at, do some accessory movements to support the thing that you suck at, and then that's the thing we're gonna specialize in every week. Like the deadlift will get all of our attention, and then now we're gonna do that and see how things work over a 2 to 4 week period. If we start seeing things tighten up and body weight come down a little bit, cool. We're creating a little bit more of a natural deficit because exercise expenditure comes up. If it doesn't come up, immediately slide over into how much food and how good of a food source am I getting. Start to remove stuff that fucks you up. Like the chicken, rice, broccoli thing is going to seldom usually destroy you. But I will say, and this is going to be kind of controversial, I don't really eat chicken. Like I don't think chicken is a great protein source because it's pretty poor of micronutrients. Like there's not a lot of vitamins and minerals in it. And it's polyunsaturated fats, which tend to be more inflammatory if you're thinking about the spectrum of omega-3s versus omega-6s. You want more 3s than 6s. So if you're already an inflamed, bloated mess, let's do stuff like seafood. Let's do stuff like lean red meat. Let's throw some plant protein in every once in a while. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to make you a pussy. You'll be fine. Like vegan protein, if it's complete, is still protein. Your body's like, I don't know the fucking difference. 20 amino acids, good. We're good to go. So do that for a couple of months until you start to see weight come down. Maybe you're just not fat. Maybe you're just really bloated because there's a lot of stress and inflammation on the body because you've been overworking and putting shit in your stomach that doesn't work for you. And just kind of titrate, like volume up. Cool, we're good. We're not getting hurt because we're supporting joints, tendons, and ligaments where you weren't doing that before. And now because we're backing off of maxing out all the time, that takes stress off the CNS. Now the body gets to be more parasympathetic. Now we're more rest and digest versus always be go, 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 cortisol fueled. It's going to start to calm things down, and then we can start to see things lighten up, and then we can move into different directions if we have to.
How are you going to find their basic calorie expenditure to know what the deficit starts at?
So you'll never really, I don't really believe in the whole like figuring out how many calories people burn because you really have no mechanism for it. Like unless you're in a controlled lab setting with all sorts of equipment hooked up to you, you have no clue. And your watch has no fucking clue and your ring has no clue. The way to see it is if I change this variable, it was one variable, right? So if I added more bodybuilding style accessory movements to my training modality, did I start to see a physique change? Right? Because maybe I can body recomp. Maybe I can start building some tissue because when you're powerlifting, you're not really building tissue. Mm-hmm. Like if you're doing 1,000 reps of stuff over the course of a lifetime, yeah, you'll build a chest, but you're not targeting growth. You're targeting strength increases. So if you start seeing your physique change and shift for the better, then you probably can say that I'm in a body recomp phase, which means that I'm probably burning more than I'm eating. Now, if that's not happening, you basically have to spend some time, at least 2 or 3 weeks, tracking your food, actually weighing it, as opposed to like, I'm guessing that I'm eating 3,000 calories. No, the fuck you're not. Like put stuff on a scale for 2 weeks and see where you're at. And if you see that weight doesn't move much in those 2 weeks, now I know that I'm maintaining weight at X amount of calories. So if I want to lose a little bit, maybe I drop off 15, 20% and see how that works.
So your starting point still is going to be changing the actual training to incorporate more volume.
Especially with a meathead. Yeah, like with a meathead, meatheads love to lift. So why would I take the one thing out of their life that they like to do?
Well, I think the big thing I don't want people to miss out on what you just said is you're training, yes, the volume's going back up, but you're changing it more from that systemic fatigue, right? From that heavy loading shit, which is more nervous system oriented, which is harder to recover from. Yep. And then replacing it with things that are more
local to the tissue. Like we're actually targeting your lats. We're targeting your rhomboids. We're targeting your biceps, your triceps, your chest, your quads, your hamstring, as opposed to I'm just going to have 600 pounds on my back and I'm going to do good mornings with it. Like, yeah, you'll get work out of that. And that should help the bigger lifts. But I don't really see a massive, if you're already good at it and you're fine with those numbers and those are competitive numbers for you, don't put any more eggs in that basket, especially if you know you have a weight problem. Yeah. And now you have to like cut weight for a meet and you're 3 weeks out and you're 7 pounds or 8 pounds heavy. Now you're going to do a water cut and a calorie cut and you're going to feel like shit on meet day. So it's like evaluate how much food you're actually eating. Is there a minimal effective dose approach? Like why would you want to eat more to get the same outcome when you can eat less and get the same outcome? Right? Like at the end of the day, like it's almost like if I can do 200 milligrams of test and get this outcome, why would I do 4? Because that's going to fuck my body up more. Food's going to be the same thing. Like if you eat too much food, it's going to create a stress and a load on your body that you're going to have to recover from. So lower the stress levels all across the board and put them into strategic areas that don't completely destroy how you feel.
Would you add cardio?
Yeah. Zone 2, as much as you want. Who gives a fuck? You can do 40 minutes of elliptical.
Well, I mean, if you're taking a guy that's only doing, the strength work.
Well, yeah. 40 minutes will kill him. So let's say 15 minutes post-session every day.
Yeah.
A person that was a mentor of mine shared like a case study with me where he had a bodybuilder he used to work with who like broke his leg, got out of bodybuilding, and then like 3 years later came back. He was like, hey man, I want to compete again. And the dude was like 100 pounds heavier and fat. And the coach was like, the canvas that I'm working with here is garbage. Like either you lose 80 pounds and come back to me and get ready for this, or I can't work with you. She's like, what do you want me to do? He's like, air bike 10 minutes, every hour on the hour while you're awake, and we'll see where you get. That's not a big ask if you think about it. Like jump on the air bike. Yeah. Zone 2, 130 BPM, beats per minute, not that big of a stress on the heart. And just do that for 10 minutes, 10 times a day. That's 100 minutes of cardio. The guy lost 75 pounds in like 3 months. And then he was on stage within the next 6 months after that because he already had the muscle underneath. He just had to chisel himself out and heal from all of his injuries, and he was fine. Mm-hmm. I think people grossly underestimate how much movement can be beneficial. Like, well, just think about it. Like, just walking. Like, I know that steps are like now overblown. Like, oh, steps are so like, yes, there's a value for steps, but like something as innocuous as like the guy that takes 5,000 steps on average versus the dude that takes 15. There's a clear difference in physique always. There's no such thing as like accidentally lean or accidentally fat. You put yourself into those positions because of the choices you make. So if you have fat on you, that's potential energy. That's what fat is. It's I have this stuff stored away evolutionarily in case something chases me, then it's going to kill me. That's what the body thinks. It doesn't know that you're trying to be a power lifter. It doesn't know that you want to be in a bikini. It doesn't give a fuck. It just knows that if you eat more than you need, it'll store it away for future use. So use it. So if you have to move your body a little bit more because you're just not expending enough energy, spend 10 or 15 minutes on the elliptical, no impact on the joints whatsoever. Listen to a fucking podcast while you do it that teaches you about something else that you don't know about, and spend 15 minutes doing it 3 or 4 times a week and see where that gets you. I guarantee at some point, if nothing else, it's a cardiovascular benefit that will help you recover in between sessions anyway. Mm-hmm. So why not just leverage that for a little while before you adjust anything about anything else? Because if you start to move too many pieces around the chessboard, how do you know what worked? I changed my food and I changed my training and I added cardio and I did this drug and that, like, okay, cool. What's working and what's not? Yeah. Like, don't just spill out the toolbox and then try to find the screwdriver. Like, know that I have a screw and I need a fucking Phillips head. Well,
that what you just said is what I see in my world, what I see more frequently than the other is they'll go because they have the mental ability to be able to, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go into a cutting phase or whatever it's going to be. I'm going to do this. I'm going to change the diet. All the macros are going to be exactly what whoever says it needs to be. They're not going to break from that. They're going to do the cardio 4 times a week, and they're going to be regimented with everything with that. They're going to cut it all down, and then 3-4 months go by, and then they're at this certain point in this calorie deficit, finally realizing the truth that they can't maintain on that calorie deficit that they're in, and really don't want to maintain, training 5 days a week with weights and doing 5 bouts of fucking cardio and all this other stuff. And then you see them 2 months later and they're right back to that baseline. Whereas, and I believe it's because they threw everything in there. It's like, okay, here's the cardio, here's now I'm on a bodybuilding split, not the powerlifting. So now I'm on a bodybuilding split. Now the diet's changed. Now my drugs have changed. Yep. So I'm taking, bodybuilding drugs instead of just pounding test and trying or whatever they were fucking doing. And whatever the other things would fall along with that, prepping every single meal, not learning how to order food in restaurants if need be, and it's not sustainable. And so then they go right back up again, but then and they've kind of implanted in their brain, the only way I can do this is if I do that. Right. And then you have, and I call it the meathead yo-yo syndrome, right? Because you got the yo-yo diet of just Gen Pop. Well, you have the meathead yo-yo syndrome, which eventually always leads to 2 things. The one thing is they just become fat and out of shape forever, right? That probably happens most of the time. Yep. The other time is they do eventually kind of figure it out, where I think if they were to go kind of the approach that you're talking about, just take this one thing, change that, and think longer, which is the problem.
Yeah.
Because they want to think, here's what I can do in 12 weeks, because they're all 12-week shred programs, right? So here's what I can do in 12 weeks instead of, I'm doing this to try to better my health because powerlifting's over or whatever it is. Here's where I really would like to be in a year. But that's so fucking hard for so many people to grasp onto. So if it's a client of yours and they're dealing in that world, how do you speak to them about that?
So I back it out and I chunk it into like smaller goals. And I tell everybody, like, if you make a modification to your training, expect at least 8 weeks of evaluating that modification to see if it works or not. So with training, 8 weeks minimum to see if it worked. With food, 30 days minimum. Like, nothing's going to happen inside of those. I mean, something might. Let's not say nothing.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever speak in absolutes because we're talking about the human body and there's too many variables. But in reality, like, implement whatever change you're going to implement and then wait but have like a measurement system for it. Like, I changed XYZ about my training. This is what changed. This is how I changed it. This is when I changed it. And then start to notice what changes. How's my energy? How's my mood? How's my appetite? Are my lifts changing? Are my big lifts staying the same? Is my general strength going up? Is my body composition changing? How do my clothes fit? What's the scale saying? How do I generally feel? Like, evaluate all those metrics. And if you change food, whatever it is, if I went up or down or I changed ingredients, give it at least 30 days to materialize before you say it worked or it didn't. And then use that same measurement stick of how's my performance? How's my physique? How's my rest? How's my recovery? How's my gut health? How's my energy, my mood, my appetite? All that stuff matters. That's the way that you strategically approach it. And 4 and 8 weeks is not that big of a deal. Like, if you ask somebody to do something for 4 weeks straight to see if it worked or not, that's an easy buy-in. But if you ask somebody to do shit for 4 months, you're like, too many things are going to happen in between those 4 months that are going to derail them and not give you an accurate picture. Because once you have a data set of, okay, I evaluated and monitored and observed these changes occurred over 30 days, then you can extrapolate some type of a conclusion and say, cool, this worked or this didn't work. I can continue or I can change.
What are the metrics that you would throw out there for that first? So
for food, the metrics I'd be looking at are, how's my digestion? Like, did that get impacted? That's number one. Like, did my digestive health change? If I was having 1 or 2 bowel movements a day, is that about the same? Did the consistency of the bowel movements change at all? Cool. Appetite. Appetite is a huge marker of just general hormonal balance. Like, if you're somebody who has a generally consistent appetite, then, we have 2 hormones, leptin and ghrelin. Leptin is the satiety hormone, which tells you that you're full. And then ghrelin is the hormone that tells you that you're hungry, ghrelin. So if those 2 things are balanced and you have a generally consistent want for food and you're not feeling like you're overburdened by food or you're not food focused, like, then that's a pretty good indication that you're in a generally good place from a hunger and satiety perspective. And then number 3, I would just say, like, what's happening inside the mirror? Do I look like I'm tightening up from the changes that I just implemented, or do I look like I'm no different than I was 30 days ago? Because if you made a decent change and all your other metrics are good and then your mirror changes, you're like, cool, I'm losing body fat. This is clearly working. Scale doesn't really matter. Because if you're a big dude, you're a big dude. Like, you're not going to notice a 4 or 5 pound swing, but you'll notice, hey, like, I'm seeing a bicep vein, or I can see the top 2 abs come through again, which I haven't seen in 5 years. Or maybe, like, I have so much less inflammation now, I can see parts of tissue that I never saw before, or certain cuts in my shoulders or my quads that I didn't see before. So so I would say it's number 1 is what did I say? I just completely forgot what I said. I said the number 2 thing was appetite. But before that was
digestion.
So digestion, appetite, and mirror for food. And then for training, energy, strength, and then go right back to digestion again. Because if you're overburdening with training, digestion will suffer. I mean, I'm sure you've been there, right?
Oh yeah.
All of us have been there. I mean, Lord knows when I was 7, when I got down from like 15% body fat to like 7, my digestive system was a disaster. Because all I was eating was chicken, rice, and broccoli, not knowing that broccoli didn't sit well with me. I was literally, I couldn't even be in the same room with myself. I was so gassy, and I was 2015. So 31 years old, single, dating promiscuously. Like, not easy to date promiscuously when you're farting all day long.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're sitting there like waiting for the next gas attack to come because you've just eaten your 6th meal of chicken and broccoli and you just can't stomach it. Now you're sitting at dinner with a girl and you're like, I can't.
It's racked. I mean, it's bad too.
It's bad. But but that's also training stress and food stress and calorie stress. Like, people don't realize the amount of stressors that we impose on ourselves physically on top of all the psychological shit that we think we're okay with, right? Like, job sucks. You and your girl are fighting all the time. Your parents are fucking broke and you're taking care of them. Like, you got to eat all that. Plus you're trying to train for 3 hours a day. Plus you're trying to do it on food that doesn't cooperate with you. So all these expectations are just so out of whack.
When the leaner I would get when it was under 10%. So when it was getting, way in there, just the ability to shit alone was becoming a problem, so it's like eating fiber, like it's going out of style, and stool saw anything, because there's not a lot of food, right? So there's not a lot of food to really come out, but it's like fucking 2 days would go by sometimes and it'd be like, what the fuck?
That's awful.
And then stool saw was like, whatever, to be able to blow this out. And that was before my food choices were limited. There wasn't a lot of food I was eating. It was the same shit over and over and over and over and over. So there was not a lot of variety in there, which I think created some of that problem too. Sure.
Less exposure.
Oh yeah. Plus the leaner you get when you've not been that lean is a stress in itself.
Massive.
You can't sleep for shit, because there's that, there's the drugs, there's that, so there's a lot, but my brain was like, this is fucking working. If this is, the more fucked up things got, the more I would think it was working.
Well, I mean, but it is. The problem is that physically, if you look in the mirror, if your goal is aesthetics, you're going to be a very unhealthy, very good looking person. Mm-hmm. You're not going to function like you want to. Like, right? I mean, think about it. Most bodybuilders have no libido whatsoever towards the end of their prep. Mm-hmm. Like, they look like statues. So all these dudes who were walking around shredded with 8-packs couldn't fuck their way out of a fucking whorehouse because they literally don't want to. They're like, I would rather just sleep all day. And then as a strength athlete, you get to a point where you're so inflamed and your joints hurt so bad all the time that you don't even want to function. Your quality of life diminishes by such a massive percent that you're not the same person with your family. You don't want to go out. You don't want to do anything that's social. Like, your life gets confined to gym and recovery, and that's all you got.
Yeah.
So it's like, I generally fall into I'm not a very competitive person. Like, I just don't care. Like, I'm almost 40. I look better than most 40-year-olds. I'm totally happy with that. I don't fucking need anything else. Like, I used to be, I don't know, like I'm not a huge guy. I'm 5'8", 210. I think my best squat ever was 550. I was fine with that. Like, I didn't need to go anything above that because I remember what it felt like on the eccentric on that squat, and I never wanted to feel that ever again. So that's it. I haven't squatted. I haven't put a barbell on my back in 4 years. But I don't give a fuck because I'm not trying to be the best squatter in the room. I want to have a nice ass and nice legs. You don't need to squat to do that. You can hack squat, you can leg extension, you can hamstring curl, you can RDL, you can fucking V squat. There's multiple implements that you guys make that I use to build my body up. But if you're a strength athlete, unfortunately, you're relegated to those pieces of equipment that are barbell based because that's your sport. But you can't expect to look and feel your best while you're performing in a performance sport. You just can't. Yeah. It's impossible. Like, think about it as like 3 points of a triangle. Like, you got performance, you got aesthetics, and you got longevity. You can't be at all 3 points at one time. Yeah. You're going to pull from one to get to the other. So if you're going to be the best squatter or the best bencher or deadlifter, you're probably not going to look like a bodybuilder. And you're probably not going to have a very long shelf life from a health perspective because your health markers are going to be diminished. But you can live in the middle, but the middle for most guys that want to be big and strong is not sexy. It's not fun. It's not exciting to live in that middle. But at some point, you're going to have to accept that the middle is where you end up. And that's a really healthy place to be because you could be in the middle forever. You could be a little bit aesthetic, you could be a little bit performance-based, and you can have plenty of longevity. And you're good. You're better than 99% of the population, but that's not good enough for these guys. That's where I think it's hard because if you're a competitive type A person, and let's say your identity is rooted in your sport or in your numbers, that's literally what you walk around with as a wallet on your back. Like, I don't have any money. I don't have a house, but I got a 900-pound squat. Yeah. Well, cool. Now what?
The way that I approach that with retired lifters or non-competitive, so they're done, but they have the experience of doing it. So that there's an anchor is, and I've used this since I've retired. I'll never do anything if it's a diet type of phase or a strength type of phase. I'm never getting 6 weeks out. Right. So it's that last 6 weeks of whatever it's going to be. Like if you were to do a show or to get lean enough to do a show, for a photo shoot or whatever it's going to be, it's that last 6 weeks that are damaging as hell to your health. And mentally, it's awful, but it's what makes the sport, in my opinion. That's the people who can manage that are the best competitors. And powerlifting as well. That last 6 weeks is going to beat the fuck out. Now, it was accumulated, but that last 6 weeks is a bitch. So if you just eliminate that, which for a powerlifter is the peaking phase, do you really need to peak? If you're not competing, do you really need to go from, clear abs to veins through your abs, dehydration and Lasix and shit like that? Do you really need to do that when you're not competing? And then that, if the 6 weeks out ends up becoming your end goal of whatever phase you're pushing on, then you got room. You can play from the 16 to the 6, the 16 to the 6, different phasic structures throughout all that. And it's, for me, I found that when I communicate that to that population, it's easier for them to wrap their head around, because it's okay, I can still train like I want to train, but then still have room to put these other things in there that you don't want in there if you're going to actually go the full distance, because there's going to be too much. There's too many demands for recovery to maintain that all the way through. Yep. Right. That's peaking. You got to pull things out to be able to peak.
But think about that. If you're a 45-year-old dude who spent most of his life powerlifting and now you can't, you could still be a strong motherfucker. Mm-hmm. There's no reason why you can't still be the strongest dad at the school pickup, or the dude at the barbecue that's still got the biggest quads and still got the biggest ass because you've been squatting 900 pounds your whole life. You'll still be that guy. You're just not going to compete anymore, and that's okay. Just find another thing that makes you happy and fulfills you, because I tell this to athletes all the time. At some point you're athletic. Look at any professional sport. Look at how much money they end up making and how much money they end up spending and losing, and how half of them end up being poor and broke, or how many of them go into deep depressions, or the rate of suicide for people that come off of performance enhancing drugs is, I think I saw some number that Thomas O'Connor put out there. It was 85% of anybody that's done steroids for over 10 years has an 85% chance of committing suicide.
No shit.
It's an astronomical thing to have to deal with. You lose all of your identity, your personality, everything is rooted into this one thing. And if you think about it, these people aren't even professionals half the time. Mm-hmm. It's the most hardcore guys you never even hear about. They're not setting world records. They're doing it in some basement in fucking bumfuck Michigan that you've never heard about. And they're doing it purely because they love it and they think it's fun. But then they just get so far into it that they don't know anything else. They don't see outside those lines. But life is bigger than that. You have a life expectancy now of almost 90 years. Yeah. And you're going to cut that by 30 or 40 just to be the strongest person that nobody's heard about. That's just pride. And at some point, pride will fucking kill you.
Well, it will. But when it's your identity, it's tough. Mm-hmm. Right. That's many times it takes other people to help guide them through that. Right.
Experienced people like you who are hey, I'm okay hanging it up.
Yeah, because it's the other caveat I put in there with that 6 week type of thing is some of the metrics, because it may be your close grip bench, you may have strength metrics, you may have body fat, doubtful in strength athletes, but how you look, there's a metric there. They need to put in Bloodwork Metrics. They have to have those in there, especially at that point, because they're older. And then those actually, you can start to try to PR those.
Yeah, because PR your blood pressure and PR your fasted blood glucose. There you go. Yeah. If you're a retired competitor, those are two things that I'd be looking at a weekly basis.
And those are simple.
So simple. You get a stick for your finger, a finger prick glucose monitor, and get a blood pressure cuff, and just test those things once a week as soon as you wake up in the morning and see where they're trending. Mm-hmm. It's not that hard. And if you see those numbers getting better over time, great. And you could still maintain strength and still be even somewhat aesthetically pleasing to yourself. It's hard because I don't want people to get hurt, because at some point that puts a strain on a lot of different people. Because think about it. Look at a guy like Ronnie Coleman. Like, he's got a tough time now living his life. Like, he's got all these great, amazing accolades and people respect the shit out of him. But he's got to walk around in that pain every single fucking day for the rest of his life until the end minutes that he has.
Mm-hmm.
Was those first 35 or 40 years being on stage worth the last 40 having to crawl through? I don't know. I've never gotten to those heights.
Yeah.
I don't know what that high feels like. So it's hard for me to be able to say it was or it wasn't worth it. And who am I to take that away from somebody? I can't. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to inform them of the potential downsides. So if you're like, it's no different than like when I was doing a ton of drugs. I know what risk I was taking when I was putting cocaine up my nose, but I was willing to take the risk because I liked the reward, and the reward was just getting fucked up and having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be able to know how to dose everything in your life and find some place of moderation. Some place. You got to get to the middle at some point. It's okay to be in the middle if you spend some time at the top.
Yeah. To answer what you were saying, I think with some people that trade-off is they're okay with it, but where the problem becomes is, are you extending beyond your ability to perform at a higher level? You see, so if they are fortunate, which is we're talking rare people here, if they are fortunate to get to that top echelon of whatever they're at, and then it is their identity. It's called like hanging around too long. Boxers that hang around too long, that's where things can become very detrimental, right? Even more so than what they've already accumulated. Whereas, they can look back and say, oh, yeah, that was cool. It's like, I don't think Ronnie has any regrets at all.
Probably not.
Yeah, not at all.
But I don't know what it's like to live in his body either. Like, even just like, I've never had a real injury in my life until this fucking Achilles tear. And now my quality of life has severely diminished for one little thing that I got playing fucking flag football.
Yeah.
And I'm not Aaron Rodgers. I didn't make $60 million in 75 seconds. And I'm not coming back to the NFL. So like, what did I hurt myself for?
Mm-hmm.
For a kid who was like, hey man, come join our flag football league for the afternoon because we got 2 injuries. So I walk out there. I'm jacked. I'm in good shape. I can do it. And 2 steps back on a back pedal on a fucking defensive play. And now I'm in a boot and I can't put my foot on the ground for 8 weeks. And I think people don't realize how valuable their physical health is and their mental health is until they lose it. And most powerlifters and most athletes don't really, they have some health scares or some health problems, but they haven't had that big one yet. And until that big one comes, they feel rather invincible. And then when, God forbid, that big one happens, and you're like, well, fuck, I just had a fucking heart attack. Or I just had to get 3 stents put in my legs because my blood's not circulating through my lower extremities anymore. Then is it fucking worth it?
Yeah. Well, that would be the wake-up call. But I think with a lot, when we're talking about that small population, a lot of this damage, as we would say, it's accumulated slowly over a period of time. Right. So it's shoulder hurts a little bit, whatever, then it hurts all the time, but whatever, you just get used to it. And then all those whatevers just keep piling up. So they don't know it as after a certain point, they don't know what feeling healthy really feels like because it's been 15 years since they've really felt that. They feel good or okay, and so that's kind of what their new norm is. And so that becomes another battle that they have to fight when it comes to that point, because they don't know how good they can really feel, right. Until they actually take the time to get all those metrics in place, because they're okay, and to them, they're okay is like, well, I guess this is just my life now. It's just, I'm going to be inflamed all the time. I'm going to fucking hurt, everything's going to hurt. I'm just going to wake up needing an hour, just to kind of get moving. And that's the battle I kind of fight with a lot of them, is because they've already accepted the fact that I've been this fucked up for so long, it's not going to get better. And maybe some things won't get better, right? Sure. Maybe some things are permanently compromised and they can live with that, and that's fine. But there's a lot of other ones that can get way better. And that's where we get back to some of the things that we were talking about, just with the basic nutrition and being able to pull weight off and things of that sort that they have a very hard time doing, right? Where they fight the same battle the Gen Pop. It's interesting to me. It's exactly the same battle.
It really is.
Really is, and it's crazy. And on one side, they'll have people that will enable it because it's all their buddies that are dealing with the same shit.
Yes.
It's like, don't worry about it, man. It's just how it is.
You just plow through it, man.
Yeah, it's like not a big fucking deal. You know, I have good days and bad days, whatever it's going to be. And that's kind of where they kind of live with that. And meanwhile, then they think to fix that is changing all those metrics, right? Where I like where your start is, but I would probably even regress to that point and say, let's find a way to just reduce their inflammation so they can just see how their shit feels when it doesn't hurt that bad. Because a lot of the pain, I think at least for myself, I know if the things go off the rails a little bit, it don't take that long. You know, a couple of weeks off the rails with the diet, it's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I remember this, but then I got to get back out of it. What do you find are the most inflammatory things that people are doing? It doesn't matter nutritionally wise, stress wise, all that. It doesn't matter if they're top lifters or not. Lives are lives. You know, they still have lives too. You know, what are the most inflammatory things or the biggest things that you see that you can change to lessen the inflammatory?
So I think right out of the gate, I would say probably just food quality. Because I think a lot of times when you're having to eat a ton of calories, you're having to play the game between calorie density and nutrient density. So if you're eating nothing but nutrient dense foods, and what I mean by nutrient dense foods, I mean just like the stuff that is considered to be quote unquote clean.
Yeah.
Your berries, your lean meats, your natural starches, like those tend to be relatively low inflammation. But you're getting a lot of food volume for not a lot of calories. So you're getting really, really full on a meal that's pretty large, but it doesn't have a ton of calories. Whereas like you can eat a fucking Five Guys burger and fries and mow it down in 2 seconds and you just ate 1,900 calories, but you can eat that 4 times again that same day. But if you were to eat 12 ounces of salmon and 300 grams of asparagus and 300 grams of white rice, you're not coming back for seconds for 4 or 5 hours. Like you're full. So you have to play this game of like, I have to be able to maintain this size or this strength profile at this amount of calories, but I'm having to sacrifice food quality to get there. And now as soon as your digestion starts to suffer, if you're somebody who's waking up bloated, going to bed bloated, you're just walking around with this gut all day long pushing into your belt, of course you're inflamed. You're holding water. You've got gases inside your stomach that are constantly turning over. Let's say you are producing bowel movements, you're shitting 4 or 5 times a day. That's a destructive way to live your life. So that's number one place to start cleaning up inflammation is just clean up your diet. Like maybe go into a little bit of I don't want to say a full calorie deficit, but maybe drop food for a little while. Like you're not going to die from eating less for 4 weeks. You're not going to atrophy. All your strength isn't just going to disappear. Like I think people are so afraid of the potential loss. Like right now I'm flatter than I've ever been, but I'm not any smaller. I'm still 208, 210. Am I marginally weaker? Sure, but who gives a fuck? I'm also in a healing phase where I know that I can't do half the stuff I was able to do. I can still push upper body, but even that, like think about the ground force production, right? If I'm on a chest press, on a seated hammer strength chest press, when I have 2 feet planted into the floor and my back planted into the bench, I could push more weight. But now I don't have 1 foot. So I'm on a tripod trying to push through that same amount of weight. I can't handle it. So all those things have to be taken into consideration. Number one place where I think people can immediately start to get a massive impact and benefit on inflammation is food quality. And that doesn't mean like having to eat super, super clean. Just find the foods that cooperate with your belly. Like 9 out of 10 times, I usually use a low FODMAP approach for most of my clients because usually they're all fucked up. They're either not shitting or shitting too much. And again, I'm working with mostly women who have all sorts of hormonal reasons why they don't go to the bathroom either. But for most guys, and I would say for most people in general, start eating things that you know are going to cooperate. So I would say everybody's demonizing red meat. If it's good, high quality grass-fed meat, whether it's beef, whether it's elk, bison, whatever, eat it. And I'm saying lean, like 95% lean or better. So like top sirloin, filet cuts that are just less fatty. That should be number one primary protein source outside of like maybe a high quality whey isolate powder, which is going to be relatively easy to digest also. Or if you can't digest whey for whatever reason, there are some really good plant proteins out there that are complete now. I'd start looking at the vegetable choices. Like I would remove shit like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, which tend to be very gassy and methane based. So I'd pull those out. I'd start to stick to more like spinach, greens, green beans, asparagus, a little bit lighter, carrots, mushrooms, easier on the stomach. And for starches, I would start to stay away from like breads or crackers or like stuff that's in a box or a bag, and just live on like sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, and white rice. And any type of white rice, basmati, jasmine is all fine. And do that for like a month. And give yourself like a treat once a week. Like, you know, if you and your wife or you and your girl want to go out to dinner, go have a dinner and just blow it out one night. It's not going to kill you. But for the other 6 days or 6.5 days that you're doing it, so that's maybe 4 bad meals in a month. And if you're eating 4 meals a day times 30 days, that's 120 meals. So if 116 meals are good, you should pretty much feel really good.
Yeah.
That's where I'd start.
After the nutrition, what would be the next block from the inflammatory? Would you say sleep? Would you say stress? Well, they kind of all play in.
Sleep
right?
is always sleep is one of those things where like I wish we could figure out a way. Like my friend Molly Eastman, she's like a sleep expert, and her course that she sells to people and teaches people is called Sleep is a Skill. And it really is. Like, sleep is a skill. Like, we're all overstressed, we're all overcommitted. And then our rest time is us sitting in front of a fucking screen at 11 o'clock at night, binge watching some bullshit. And I do it too, but I have no trouble sleeping because I live in a weed legal state, and I'll just eat fucking 10 milligrams of THC and I'm out like a light, and I don't wake up more than once to pee. But if you're somebody who's like early, like I'm a 4:30, 5 a.m. riser, like I gotta be in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock. I have to be. So sleep is one of those things where if you can get quality, like 5 or 6 hours of quality sleep is probably better than 8 hours of you tossing and turning. Mm-hmm. So if you can get quality sleep, great. But it's a tough variable to control. I don't see a lot of people that are, because putting your eggs in that basket doesn't produce almost an immediate result, right? Like if you clean up food, you feel it in 2 days. If you start working on sleep, it might take 7 or 8 days to materialize before you really feel it. So most people bow out before that because the effort they put into getting better at sleep doesn't really produce a result quickly enough. So I would start to address, well, are we talking drug-free or drug user?
Both.
So drug user, just look at how much you're doing and what you're doing. Like, take out all the shit that's creating a lot of water retention, stuff that's converting into estrogen really, really fast, all your like DHT derivatives, all that stuff. And just kind of stick to like a very low dose of like test, and maybe if you want like a master on, and just cruise it out and just see like low dose. You're not going to lose any muscle mass. You might lose a little fullness. Who cares? But that'll lower the inflammation by a mile. Mm-hmm. And then if you want, like, I'm very much pro GH. Like, I think growth hormone at low doses should be taken by everybody. Like 2 to 4 IUs of growth for most people, even if you're not an athlete, should just be something that they give you. Because you just feel like a fucking $1 million. Because like their body repairs better. Your gut health gets better. Like my stomach health has never been better, ever. And I take, now I'm on a bit of a higher dose because of my foot. But like before that, I was like 2 to 4 IUs a day, and my stomach health was better. I could feel tighter. I don't see I see all my veins. I see all my lines. I don't feel that bogged down feeling of being watery. So
it's not inflammatory to you?
At those dosages? Not at all. No. I mean, that's what they would give you therapeutically. Mm-hmm. Like if you think about like, what is the lowest dose that would be effective that isn't super physiological, that's turning me into a superhuman person? Yeah. So use like a dose that you would use if you were trying to repair a condition. And 2 to 4 IUs is going to get you there. So I would look at the dose and the compounds that I'm using and cut out all the stuff that I'm trying to grow on. Like if you're on trend, like get the fuck off of it.
Yeah.
Like that's immediate. Like, you're going to get huge, but you're also going to get huge in other ways. There's so much anabolism that's occurring. Everything is growing on top of all the fact that you're just retaining a ton of water too. But I would, the drug route is definitely a place that I would start to look. And then just general like life stress. Like people that are walking around with a heightened sense of cortisol all the time because they're just fucking bottled up, just constantly waiting to kill somebody. Like, I know it sounds weird, but like if you're a big, like, start stretching and doing yoga. Like spend 2 fucking days, like either go on YouTube and find some little 10-minute routine and just spend 10 minutes away from everybody, away from your phone, moving your body in a way that's really weird to you, and just start to disconnect because we're so fucking bogged down. Like, I don't want to say that cortisol is the direct relationship to fat gain or water retention, but prolonged exposure to increased cortisol will absolutely make you retain water. It has to. There's no other way around it. I mean, that is the way that it works. So just start to try to lower stress levels. Now I know that's like a foofy thing to say. Like, how the fuck do I lower stress? My job is crazy. My wife and I are constantly in fights. Like, if you're an adult and you don't know how to communicate, like maybe start hiring a therapist.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I was 38 before I hired one. It was the best thing I ever did. Like I was not a fucking functional adult until I went through a year of therapy. And now, I mean, total stress reliever. Like I don't ever blow my lid on anything anymore because I have coping mechanisms in place, as opposed to like a lot of guys that are, there's no such thing as mental health for men. There really isn't. I mean, think about it. Like we're like a forgotten population. If you're a dude, especially if you're a dude that's big and strong, you're expected to not ever be bothered by anything. You're supposed to be able to take everything on the chin. And that's just not how it works. Like guys suffer too. Like we don't have an outlet. Like nobody's talking to us about like how we feel. And then we're told not to feel anything anyway. So if you're somebody who's in your 30s or 40s and you're trying to be an athlete, like I would definitely recommend spending some time with therapy. Absolutely. Because even just from a physiological perspective and how it's going to benefit your potential for increases of strength or increases of muscle, it will absolutely help.
The stress is always, it's kind of a weird one for me to process in a way because I own a business, right? So there's your ability to tolerate stress is going to also come with your ability to have dealt with stress. Like I'm not going to get mad about losing in a video game. I've dealt with things way worse than that.
Sure.
But if that was the worst thing I've ever had to deal with, you're going to lose your shit about all that. So I think you need to lean into some stress to be able to build the tolerance for stress. I think you just need to learn how to reframe and know what the stress is. Like, I think a lot of people get stressed, and this is where therapy could probably help. Yeah. You know, a lot of people get stressed about shit that they really shouldn't be stressed about. When you look back on it, even a week later or a couple of days later, like that was stupid as fuck.
Yep.
You know, it's in a period of, you know, one day, I can just go through, there's like 5 fucking things that 20 years ago, 15 years ago would have threw me through the roof that I just had to deal with this, like whatever, you know, and so that kind of gets lost a little bit, in my opinion, when people talk about lowering stress and all that, is you can't remove everything from absolutely. That.
And you shouldn't.
And you shouldn't. And because then the smallest things are going to set you off. You know, if you're on high doses of trying, everything's going to set you off. But, you know, the smallest things are going to set you off. I could, in a fucked up way, I could probably make that like a therapeutic thing too. Yeah. Like, let's put you on a little bit of stress. So you just get pissed off about dumb shit. And then we can learn how to not get pissed off about the dumb shit.
It's exposure therapy.
It's like exposure therapy, which is wrong. Don't do that. It's completely fucking wrong. But, you know, it's with, I have to watch how I say this because I have to speak about the bubble I'm in, you know, the people that I'm around, you know, the younger demographic of people that I'm around, their ability to tolerate really simple stress things that wouldn't have been hard for me to tolerate when I was 25 or whatever it is ridiculous how stressed they get about it. And, you know, I don't know if that's just conversations with other people or I don't know what that is, but I wonder with younger ones growing up where if they're too protected, you know, you know, as they're growing and then, you know, they get out into the real world because they've been in this protective bubble from whatever their parents create or people around them create. Then they get into the real world. The real world does not give a fuck, you know, about your feelings at all. And if you're the person that's going to get set off every single time somebody slams on their brakes in front of you, you know, then you're going to have problems because there's going to be way bigger shit that's going to come. And instead of your ability to process, is this really a problem? Is it not? You know, it's that I worry about, you know, because I like to see things in many different ways. You know, it's like a cold plunge, for instance. Like, I get it. I used to do cold plunges when I was competing. I didn't when I played football. You know, you came off the field, a big silver thing with a little fucking, you know. So it's all that. But when I hear people, I use the cold plunge because I need to condition my mind to be able to deal with harder stress. I'm like, that's really the hardest fucking stress you have to deal with is sitting in cold water.
Yeah.
But I get it. You know what I'm saying? I get it. But it's the same time, it's like, you got to learn how to deal with this other shit. And I also understand people aren't being given the skills as when they're younger. So you can't fault them because they're not given the skills to be able to cope and to deal with all that, to where therapy probably is the thing. Somebody's got to be able to help them deal with those skills, because whoever the fuck raised them didn't, you know, so there's that. I can go down a whole fucking
or challenge their belief system. Like my therapist was really more of like a wellness coach. Like she wasn't really a psychologist. So she was kind of more of like a mindset coach. And what we did a lot was like, I would say something that bothered me, and then she would ask me like the series of like deflating questions. She'd basically diminish the problem. She's like, why did you think this was that big of a deal? Like almost kind of throwing it back at me. Like why? And I never thought about it that way. Like, why am I making this a big deal? And a good example for anybody that's listening, I'm sure we've all been on an airplane before. Like this was me yesterday, 2 hours late flying out of San Diego. Had a 2.5 hour layover in Detroit, which would have been perfect because I could have gotten to Columbus without having to run through the airport with my fucking shit leg. And we land in Detroit, and I know that the airport in Detroit is massive. So I got 12 minutes to get to my connecting flight, and I'm panicking. And I'm looking at all the people that are standing up, because what they said was like, hey, anybody that's not connecting somewhere, stay in your seats, let the other people get off. And then as soon as I start seeing half the plane get up, I'm like, there's no way all these people are connecting, and my blood starts boiling. But then because of my therapy and because of my coping mechanisms that I've built up over the years, I look at it as like, this isn't a life or death situation. God forbid I miss my flight. I'll catch another one. I don't need to be in Columbus until Wednesday. It's Tuesday. I have a day buffer. Would I like to get there selfishly before that? Of course. Would I like things to go my way and on time? Of course, but that's not the way the world works. So if you're constantly always fighting for this like optimal, perfect for me condition, that's a fucking selfish, immature way to think about life, right? Or if you're constantly in this level of like dick measuring contest where like you're always looking around for a problem because you think that everybody's out to get you. Nobody in the world gives a shit about you other than the people in your life, and even they don't give a fuck about it. They're always worried about themselves first. So you have to be able to like learn how to deflate all these things. And I think especially like in the strength and competitive world, there's a massive level of ego attached to it.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to be able to let go of that ego and be able to actually lean into some humility and know that it's okay that like you're not getting what you want in that moment because you're not that fucking important to begin with.
Yeah.
And you have to know that you're a lot smaller than than the world has made you think you are.
Well, I think these are huge things, especially in the age that we're in now, where everybody wants to become an entrepreneur. Right. I know I'm being serious, right? Because these are things that entrepreneurs have to deal with constantly, you know, every single day is, you know, deflating things, reframing things, because there's so many things, and you're an entrepreneur, so you know where I'm talking. There's so many things that can sidetrack you from the thing that's really the problem. You know, so then the problem can never be addressed because you're spending too much time on all these other things that aren't important. But if you don't learn how to do that, and the younger you can learn that, the better it's going to be, because they're not going to succeed. You know, they're not, you know, I don't even think they can succeed in the strength world, to be honest, because if they don't learn how to control their ego, they're going to overreach, they're going to get hurt, they're not going to know how to peak, they're going to peak too soon. I mean, a lot of these things they can kind of learn through that process, you know, of going through all that, which one of my whole missions when I started the company was, how can I get people that know all those skills to transfer them into a relationship, business, and other things, because they're there. They've used them. You know, they've auto-regulated their training. They've learned how to set objectives, goals. They've learned how to pivot that goal if things don't. It's all there. But then outside of that realm of that, their life is a fucking disaster. I'm like, how can you not correlate this can carry over to this? You know, and it's interesting to see how that kind of plays. And part of the problem with that I've seen over the years is the reason why some people have a hard time doing that is because anything that happens outside of life, they can see if it is a distraction to the recovery to their training, because their training becomes that big thing, right? So it's easier for them to not worry about, like, fuck that, this is what matters, right? Instead of, I need to use what I'm doing here, so this doesn't become an inflammatory response, which makes this actually harder to recover from, which hinders more people's progress in the weight room than I think they understand.
Oh, always. I mean, what is it? How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
So if you're an intense type A, go, 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 rah, rah, balls to the wall type of person, you better be fucking like that in every other aspect of your life. You better be the best at your job. You better be the best at your relationship. You better be the best communicator. But if you're just the best lifter and all that other shit sucks, you're not going to fucking thrive as a human being. You're just not. And I think the problem is people put so much, it's almost like being like, you're so good at this one thing, or you think that you're so good at this one thing that you just allow everything else to fall to the wayside. And again, at some point, your career is going to end. And do you have the communication skill set to actually have a fucking productive relationship? Are you employable? Are you a fucking hothead? Because that's all you've ever done and been in a room full of meatheads that were patting you on the back for every time you bled out of your nose because you hit a lift. Like, that's not how life works. Like, the weight room will teach more lessons, I think, than any other place in the world. Mm-hmm. I really do. Like, I believe if you were to do two things to any kid, they got to work in a restaurant for a year, and they need to be able to be in a weight room with a bunch of people that they don't know or aren't comfortable with for a year. If you could do those two things, you can navigate life beautifully.
100%.
But unfortunately, I think the problem is some people are so naturally gifted that they walk into a weight room and they don't meet any resistance. And then nobody ever challenges them on any of their beliefs. So they just start sitting on the top of this pedestal and they think that that's where they belong. But in every other part of their life, they're not anywhere near being at the top. So like, you have to be like, it's almost like if you're jealous of somebody's life because they make a ton of money and you don't, you got to also be jealous. You have to also be considerate of the fact that they probably had to work 40 hours a day for fucking 6 years to get to where they got, because you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. Mm-hmm. So we have to be able to conceptualize all these things. And that's why like macros are cute and mesocycles are fantastic and science is great. But if you don't have the psychology to back any of this stuff up, and like, as much as I hate being like mindset forward, the problem is everything starts in your fucking head. Everything, every success and every failure is deeply rooted in between your ears. Mm-hmm. And if you can't manage that little piece of gray matter in between your ears, you're never going to be able to amount to anything.
Well, 100%, 100%. And it's just understanding that is the first thing, because one of the rants that I heard you do was, I don't know what podcast it was, but it was a conversation about how some of the clients that you work with, they don't know how they ended up being fat and out of shape, because
I woke up one day.
Yeah, they were a college athlete, and now that's just like, I don't know what the fuck happened, and they're 50 pounds overweight and all the other kind of stuff. So it's them they consciously at some point made a decision to not exercise anymore. And they made a decision to not eat the way that they used to eat. And when you ask them what happened, and I think this is kind of what the conversation was in the podcast, you ask what happened. It's I got married, then I got this job, and you could have exercised through all of that,
or at least kept some baseline level of standards.
Yeah,
because you can't always go balls to the wall. And I get it. Like if you're a competitor, you're dialed in for X amount of weeks or X amount of months for this one very specific end date in which you're going to perform, and that'll be it until the next time you do it. But in general fitness and in general health, there's really no achievement. It's always like this perpetual turnover of effort. Like, I'm either going to go balls to the wall for this amount of weeks because I have the runway, or I'm not going to think about it as much. But there should still be a baseline standard that you hold yourself to. Like, I know for me, like the people that I'm visiting here in Dublin, they own a bakery. And there was a fucking box of cookies sitting on the counter, and I got stoned last night. And of course, when I'm going to get the munchies, but I eat cookies once every 2 fucking months.
Yeah.
So I can afford to eat 12, 15, 1,800 calories worth of cookies, but I'm also not going to wake up in the morning, look at myself in the mirror and be super proud and be like, oh my God, why am I still not shredded? Why are my bowel movements awful this morning? Why didn't I sleep? And why do I feel like shit? Well, it was due to the decisions I made the night before. But I think we're getting so disconnected as human beings where like we don't correlate our momentary need for satisfaction to the result it's going to have. And that happens with athletes too. Like, they make shitty decisions in the moment because they think they're good. They don't actually weigh the cost benefit of that decision. And then they have to wear that decision for an uncomfortably long amount of time. And then they get frustrated. Mm-hmm. And then the process is broken. Like, no, the fuck it's not. Your concept of the process is broken. Your expectations of results are broken and disordered. The process works just fine. You just fucked it up.
Yeah. See, the example I could use of that, that skill being used in the weight room not carrying over would be the person that, I don't care what the exercise is, say, I'll get away from the powerlifting things. Let's just say it's a leg press and you're pushing and you do a top set and it's a good top set. And then you're like, fuck it, I'm going to do another one. But instead of doing 10, I'm going to force myself to do 30. Right. And then you just fucking kill yourself to be able to do it, which is fine. I have no problem with that. I can give benefits for doing that.
Sure.
But after that's done, the smart lifter is going to start reevaluating, what else do I have on the plan to do today? Do I need to not do these other couple things? Because this already, if there's 100% energy reserve, kind of like a video game, and you just, instead of that taking 20% of your life, now it's a 50, so you got to manage what's going to be left here. And then before you did that, Seth, the smart one's going to understand, okay, this is probably going to fuck up how my bench is going to feel tomorrow. It's probably going to change what I'm going to do the next time's legs comes around, but I'm okay with that because I know what the exchange is.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all cost benefit analysis.
Yeah. Now a beginner lifter is not going to learn that yet, but the longer you do it, just by experience, you subconsciously are making decisions like this, kind of knowing that, and to go back to powerlifting, if it's a squat, it would be like that extra set that, man, I'd really like to do it. It might be there, but fuck, next week I'm supposed to go up 20 more pounds. I already did what I was supposed to do. If I do this, I might risk that next week being fucked up, where these weeks build upon and build upon and build. And they still may say, fuck it, I'm doing it. But then I'm going to have to probably adjust my nutrition for the next few days. I'm going to have to put restorative means in here to compensate for what this is. So it's there. This is the shit that frustrates me, by the way, because it's there. But then when you try to apply that to cookies, or whatever it's going to be, it's all out the window. It actually goes the opposite. It's like, well, they'll eat all the fucking cookies and they're going to think, okay, fuck, I fucked up last night. So fuck it. I'm going to go to Bob Evans and just kill it. And oh, fuck it. I fucked that up. I'm just going to fuck up the whole time I'm here.
Yeah.
So then it goes from one thing into a mess that's going to now screw up a whole month.
It's like a cyclone. It just kind of it puts you into this place where you just kind of have this negative feedback loop over and over and over again. And I think what it does is it tears confidence away from the individual, because the more that you don't believe in your ability to make good decisions, the less confident you become. And this is what happens with all my Gen Pop clients. Like, they have one bad weekend. Like I had a woman today DMing me on Instagram. She's like, I'm going to Italy with my husband for 12 days. What should I do? I'm like, go fucking enjoy your vacation with your husband for 12 days. What do you think is going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
She goes, well, how much protein should I eat? I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Who cares? Like, you're probably going to eat some. Like, you're not going to lose 30 years of accumulated muscle mass and strength because of a 12-day vacation. Mm-hmm. And if that's what you think, your relationship with this process is beyond fucked up. And you have to get yourself a reality check. Like, the one thing that I think I'm really good at is just being reasonable and logical. And that is a dead fucking skill today, because everybody overemphasizes and underestimates everything.
Mm-hmm.
They put an overemphasis on exercise. They underestimate the power of nutrition. They underestimate the power of the basics. And they think that everything that they know is the holy grail of information. Whereas for me, like, if you can't pivot and turn every corner that life brings to you, because life is never going to be this straight line of just achievements, like, most people are going to get knocked down way more fucking times than they get to get up.
Mm-hmm.
Always. Like, I mean, anybody that's done anything in their life will tell you they probably failed more often than they succeeded, but the success that they did finally get was massive, right? Like, you probably started 4 businesses before you fucking failed at them, before you were able to open up the one that actually now is taking off.
Mm-hmm.
Or you tried to do XYZ job, or, the girl that got away that you finally got back 20 years later because you learned how to communicate with her and you actually appreciate what she has to say. Like, all of this delayed gratification that people don't want to experience because they're always waiting, like, what's in it for me now? Like, you can't think like that. Like, yes, I get, like, life is finite and you get hit by a truck tomorrow.
Yeah.
But the reality is you're probably not. And then you're going to have to live with your shitty decisions on a daily basis. And that's not a fun place to be. So I think, like, just if you're an athlete, be patient, be reasonable, be logical. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If whatever you're hearing about how to accelerate your results is something that doesn't make any fucking sense to you, question it, research it by a mile, talk to anybody that you think is an expert on it. Like, gather as much data and information as you can before making a decision, especially when your mental or physical health is on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what's going to happen. Like, you're going to suffer in some place. And I think like health is one of those things where like once you lose it, I mean, we all know what's happening in the medical system today.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't want to be a victim to it. Like, I don't want to be on a fucking machine until I'm 90. Like, and I know like a lot of guys are like, I'm going to ride the car till the wheels fall off. And I get that. Like, I totally do. But at some point, like, the wheels are going to fall off.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break real quick because I got to take a piss. And we'll come back. You guys are selecting Merrick for your telehealth platform needs. They have a couple different ways that they go about doing this. The first is through a self-selected experience. So there's a table talk panel, which is the full panel. That would be the panel that I personally get twice a year. That's checking everything. You name it, it's all there. The other panel is a checkup panel with a guided optimization. You're connected with a patient care coordinator, and the patient care coordinator will meet with you to determine what your needs are, to be able to help optimize your health or mitigate without judgment. So the discount code again is Table Talk Merrick Health for all your hormone optimization and performance needs. This is Dave Tate from EliteFTS. Last year, we partnered with Ken Kanakin to co-host the Swiss Symposium. It's built on hypertrophy and sport medicine for strength athletes and practitioners to come together in one place, which will be the Columbus Hilton at Easton. You are going to learn how to level up your training based upon the success and failures of others. You have to stay on top of your game if you want to be able to make the success and move forward at the pace that you want. Just to name a few of the presenters that will be presenting, we're going to have Matt Winning, Brian Carroll, Eric Serrano, Jim Wendler. That's just a few. These experts will be presenting on low back injury and prevention, exercise selection, as well as a business, steroid recovery, and restoration panel. If you want to network with one of the experts that we have presenting, we're going to have people there to be able to help you do that. To register for the Swiss Symposium, go to the EliteFTS.com website, look for the banner on the homepage, click that, we'll see you there. One of the ways that you can support the podcast is by purchasing or picking up our limited edition apparel. The shirt that I have on right now is one of the only shirts that we've brought back for a second time. Normally we'll never do that, but the only reason we brought this one back for a second time is it sold out within 6 hours. So we brought this one back. We also got a second one that we just dropped. It's our, I guess, just Halloween edition shirt. Go to EliteFTS.com or go to the link in the description. This really does help us out because this directly supports the Table Talk podcast. Thank you guys. Enjoy the show. Okay, I'm going to jump back in with, we are talking about the health system. So I don't want to go deep into that rabbit hole, but what I will ask is, how do you navigate it?
Like ordering food at a restaurant?
No, just the medical health system, like, because you said
no, like that's how I literally navigate it. Like, I'll give you a perfect example.
Oh, I get. Yeah, okay. It was an analogy.
So I tore the Achilles last Sunday, and I should have just gone to the ER, but I had, I have people in my immediate network that know about physical therapy, so I just kind of took it upon myself to start the rehab process immediately. So I finally got an appointment to my GP to go get a referral to get an MRI. And I walked into the doctor's office, and like, they are not equipped to handle anything outside the scope of like providing a medication. Like, at least what I'm seeing. Now, I don't want to like discredit. Listen, I'm not a medical professional. Yeah. I didn't spend 8 years in medical school. But what astonishes me is the fact that like there's just no emphasis on asking any leading questions. Like, there was no, what were you doing prior to this? What is your general physical preparedness like? How active are you? What kind of stress are you under? What's your diet like? It's just immediately, how'd you tear your Achilles? Backpedaling in a football game. Okay. I need an MRI. Well, we have to put that through insurance and everything else. I'm like, I need an MRI like immediately. Because if it's a full tear versus a partial tear, we really should know. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there like asking for what I need. But that's because I know what I'm talking about. Imagine somebody who's general public, who has some sort of issue where they don't know how to advocate for their own health, and they just listen to whatever their doctor says. Like my mother. Like, my mother has multiple issues. She's a type 2 diabetic. She just had a fucking pacemaker put in December. And they just put her through appointment to this, to that, take this drug, take that drug. And she just sits there and just accepts all of it without questioning an ounce of it. And because these people have degrees on the wall and white lab coats, they're the authority. But the problem is that they don't always have your best intentions in mind. Sometimes they're trying to make some money. Sometimes they're in cahoots with fucking pharmaceutical companies. And I'm not going to be shy to say that. Like, they'll probably admit it to you. Like, I get a kickback for fucking prescribing Ozempic all day long. And it's just, I think one of the big things that I've really taken up as a responsibility for myself is making people aware that they're able and should be asking questions to their healthcare providers. Like, don't just walk in and take your first diagnosis or take your first answer as the gospel. Like, dig around a little bit, find out, like, why is this? Why are you giving me a statin? Why are you telling me to go on this drug? Like, what would be the alternative? But that's our responsibility, I especially for us. Like, I do consider coaches, trainers, we are the front line of healthcare because we're seeing our clients way more than they'll ever see their doctors. Maybe they're seeing their doctor once a year. If there's a problem, they're seeing them more than that. But like, they don't have that communication loop like we do. We know about their bowel movements. We know about their sleep. We know about their stress. We know about how they feel. We know about their digestive health. Doctors don't know any of that shit. And they don't care to.
There's a lot of examples I can give with this where recently it was somebody that I know that went in, and I can't remember what they went in for, but they were put on a medication for whatever reason, trying to keep it as general as I can. And then they were given this study, like, here's the study to be able to validate a study to be able to validate what it was. And so they're like, okay, that's cool. And basically what I tell anybody that has to go in for anything that's serious is somebody needs to go with you. Yeah. Right. You have to have a quarterback. Right. And so they had the study, they took the study, then we read the study, and it was
cherry picked.
It wasn't even that. It was the opposite of what, basically, if you read the study, they should not be taking the medication. Oh my God. So I'm sitting, and at that point, I'm questioning, like, this motherfucker, somebody probably sent him the study and said, here's this study that validates this. He never read it. And then nobody else is going to take the time to read it. Then when we read it, and it's the opposite of what it's like, what the fuck, And so then that goes into that next appointment. Like, well, here's this, here's these other studies, like, what the fuck, and I'm not going to tell people to be an asshole, but be prepared to have conversations and have questions. And if it is something that's more serious, because I'm older, so I've had more people, friends of mine, pass than what most, it's part of being older, is more people, pass. And the amount of times that I've been in, hospitals with people and have seen, order this test, and then the test never gets ordered, where if somebody wasn't there with a clipboard or, phone, writing down this test needs to be done. So 4 hours later or 6 hours later, when they come back in, it's like, well, why haven't they come in to get the test? Well, they fucking completely forgot. It's like, oh, well, so you got to write, you got to hold them accountable for what and it's just the system, right? It's not the doctor. The doctor ordered the test. He's expecting everybody to do what they're supposed to do downhill. And then when it doesn't happen, there's nobody quarterbacking. Right. And if the person's in there by themselves, they're fucked, and I've always jokingly said the safest place to be in a hospital is the ICU, because there's like 3 fucking nurses and there's somebody outside. There's like so many people all around. As soon as every floor you move down, you need people there, just to be able to ask why, what's this? And there are very good doctors and very good nurses. They're there. They're there. And if you're an asshole and you just shit on them immediately, like a lot of people do. So I'm going to put, a balance here too. A lot of people just shit on them from the beginning. So don't expect them to like go out of their way when you're being an asshole right from the jump. So there's that part of the whole thing where the angle I'm trying to go at with this is there's not enough emphasis put on preventative medicine, and your doctor's not going to tell you. Some will, mine will, some, I mean, some will.
You're lucky with your guy.
Where, the ultimate goal should be able to become healthy, that you don't have to be on meds or all this other stuff. Or if they want to put you on meds, then what can you do health-wise to better your health so you don't need that med.
Sure.
You know, and that's where they don't have the emphasis there. And I'm going to be completely honest, I don't know if they're supposed to, right? Because that's their job, is to treat this cause. That's their job. Here you come in, you have this cause, I treat it, get out.
It's symptom management.
It's symptom management. That's what their job is. Well, whose job is it to keep people healthy? That falls, as you said, that falls on the trainers, that falls on the fitness industry.
The private pay doctors. That are
private pay doctors and stuff like that as well. So I guess the way I'll just end that whole thing is be prepared. You know, it's the worst. Years ago, doctors used to tell you, just don't go to WebMD, don't do any research, just basically just blindly listen to what I say. And I probably get it a decade ago, because people were coming in self-diagnosing the shit out of everything. Where now I would say, you know, once you're in that path, yes, you know, look shit up. So when you go in, you can ask better questions.
The better question part, I think, is one of the massive things that we need to be able to emphasize with any population that we're speaking to, because asking better questions leads to better solutions every single time. And I think the problem is asking better questions comes with a sense of responsibility that people don't often want to take. Like, it takes work to arm yourself with information to then ask better questions. So that legwork is something you have to do as an individual. That takes time, that takes effort. How many people do you know that want to do that? They want to be able to walk in, here's my problem, what's my solution, let me get the fuck out. Versus, I'm going to spend 2 or 3 days trying to figure this shit out. And I'm going to know that when I walk in, I have these 3 or 4 talking points and these few questions that I can ask you. As soon as I feel comfortable with whatever intervention you've prescribed, I can either accept it, or I then have the option to go seek another opinion. And think about that. That entire methodology should be applied to anything, especially nutrition and training.
Yes.
Like, if you know how to ask proper questions about dieting, about eating, about training, you're going to have better outcomes. But that requires there to be some level of baseline education. So I think collectively we're missing that aspect of it. Like, people just aren't well educated, and that information is not produced in a massive amount of scope, because everybody's trying to sell something.
Yes.
And like we were talking about offline, we were talking about the idea of like putting information behind these paywalls. Like, if you want to dig deeper into this, you have to sign up for this, this, and this. Whereas, like, for me, I'm going to give away as much shit that I can for free that you can tactically use today, because I know that at some point you're going to either need more accountability to keep executing, or you're going to need more information because now you're going to earn some nuance. And that's how it should be with the medical system. Like, they should be able to, like, they as a medical healthcare provider, instead of giving you these little leaflets. Now, the problem is they're bound by research and they're bound by the insurance business. So they can't be as loose with their verbiage as you and I can. Like, you and I can talk about 20 years of anecdotal evidence that we know is true, even though it's not backed by a PubMed article. And I think now there's so many people that are in our space that are hiding behind these PubMed articles. And they're just like, well, if it's not backed by research, you shouldn't do it. Like, okay, 20 years of anecdotal, in-person, clientele-based evidence shows me that I can do it, and it works. Just because it's not backed by fucking science doesn't mean that it's not true or it's not relevant.
Or the science hasn't been done yet.
Well, that's the other thing. On nutritional science, forget it. Like, we're 15 years behind. Like, we've been, like, intermittent fasting has been a thing for 20 years, and we're just starting to get around to, like, understanding it. But who's putting money into that stuff? And it's usually the people that are putting money into the research are the ones who have a stake in it. So, like, you have to also understand where that research is coming from. And look at the first 30 pages of a Men's Health magazine. Fucking Western Michigan University says if you drink Fiji water upside down, you're going to burn 30 more calories. Because they did it in one group, like in the 22 to 25-year-old male college soccer player. That's not your average person. And I think this idea of, like, it falls within range, or you're normal based on what? Like, have you gone to a Walmart around here? Do you know what normal looks like? Do you want to be normal, or do you want to be fucking healthy? And you have to responsibly and individually define what that means to you.
Yes. That kind of stuff there is what pushed me away from the fitness industry. And I mean, I've always been in the strength industry anyhow, so that's where my passion is. But I've always wanted to stay out of that because there are, in any industry, there's always positioning and marketing. It's always there. It's, and that side, it's fucking ridiculous. You know, the positioning and the marketing, the scams, all this other kind of stuff. And it's different too, because in strength and conditioning on the other side, there is a base level that people are going to have. You know, if they're passionate about it, they're going to have a base level. On the fitness level, there's no base level education. You know, so people are falling for, you know, the supplement that's going to make them lose 30 pounds in a day and all this other kind of shit. And they just fall for over and over and over, where at some point in time, it does fall on the individual, because if you fell for this shit 4 times, then, you know, at that point, it's probably you.
Well, the responsibility aspect, I think, is huge. And I think like social media gets a lot of shit for having bad information on it, but it's also like up to you as a person looking at it to know whether, and to like disseminate whether it's applicable to you or not. Like if you're a 48-year-old woman and your Instagram account is a bunch of 22-year-old fitness models, what the fuck are you doing? Like, that's not your fucking person. You need to be looking at premenopausal moms of 3 who have achieved this type of a body that you want, because they can show you what's possible under these specific conditions, versus you looking at this 22-year-old fitness model who's living at home with mommy and daddy and she's got a marketing gig on the side. That's not who you should be looking for information. So you have to, as an adult who's looking at information, like be able to understand, does this apply to me? Is it relevant? Is it real? Are they selling me anything? And do they have a history of helping me? Like I just did a virtual summit where the presentation topic that I did was educator or influencer, how to navigate the bullshit of social media. Because social media can be a very powerful place to source very quality information. And it can help. I mean, I've literally seen, there's a guy named Gillis Peregrine who does all sorts of like posts about hormones. And he put out a post 2 days ago about reverse T3 and how important it is when it comes to a thyroid lab. Information that no average person has. Your doctor will, like your endocrinologist wouldn't even go that deep to talk about it. But he put out this very succinct, very applicable 6-slide post. And I sent it to every single woman that I've ever worked with who's ever suspected she has a thyroid problem. And it blew their minds. They were like, holy shit, why don't endocrinologists talk about it? Because it's not, because you never asked the question, because you didn't know. So we can find great people out there. And the nice thing about, I think, you and me is we know, because of our history, how to drown out the bullshit. So what we see on our Instagram feed is only helpful, real information, versus what most people are doing is they're surfing for cat videos falling out of trees. And in the interim, they're looking at the fastest way to lose 50 pounds. So if all the stuff that you're looking at is just bullshit in general, it's going to keep showing you more bullshit. Yeah. So it's on you as the consumer to be somewhat informed, at least.
So what were some of the takeaways to actually filter through the bullshit online?
Always constantly talking about themselves. Like, I did this, or I did that, or here's a picture of me, or here's another picture of me, as opposed to like, how am I serving my audience? Like, if you look at my Instagram page, I'm either putting out a text slide that has some type of food for thought, or I'm providing some tip or trick in 20 or 30 seconds that I'm speaking into the camera for. It's not me shirtless on a beach in fucking Aruba, or sitting on top of my Maserati because I finally deserve to live this life. It's all stuff like, how can I help you? I am on Instagram to help you. You tell me what you need and I'll figure out a way to find an answer for you. So number one thing is, if they're constantly either selling or showing themselves, they don't give a fuck about you. They're waiting for you to buy something. And the second you become a customer, you're forgotten about. They just want you in their ecosystem. I think another way to disseminate bullshit is see who they're interacting with. Like, do they have quality people that they collaborate with? Or is it just another fucking influencer just like they are? I used to have this rule where, like, if you had over 100,000 followers, I just wouldn't follow you, because I just immediately thought you were going to sell me some bullshit or you were some like douchebag. But Jordan Syatt kind of changed that for me, because he actually puts out very applicable quality information. And then that changed my tune. And then I started realizing, like, there are some good people out there. They just happen to be very popular and they've grown this massive following and they deserve it. Yeah. And then there's some people that have these massive followings where if you actually look at the post and you start looking at the comments, they're all robots that are commenting on it. So you can clearly see they have 500,000-600,000, but they bought the following and they bought the engagement, which happens all the time. So if you look at somebody's profile and then you go into their post and you look at their comments, if it's always like random people with like an emoji or like a heart or whatever, or like a fire or a thumbs up, clear indication that they bought and paid for their following. So I would say quality of the information. Can I apply it today? Are they always asking me to buy something? Are they constantly talking about themselves? And do they buy and pay for their following?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you just get rid of the bullshit immediately.
What I would tell people is that it's not that hard to separate the bullshit. Like if you can't figure out the scam shit just right away, then you're an idiot, right? Because most people have jobs and professions doing something,
Sure.
right? So if this was in their profession, they would be able to spot bullshit like that. And bullshit's bullshit. It's worded the same way, it looks the same way, it sounds the same way, it smells the same way, right? So we can watch local news, or we can watch, anything that's on fucking public television, or anything that's on the internet, being fitness professionals or knowing the strength industry, and you can watch that and be like, that's fucked up. I mean, it's immediately like, oh my God, this is like national news. This is fucked up, but it's a fucking script, teleprompter, broadcaster, somebody else wrote it. You know it. Other people don't know it, but because you know the industry, it's bullshit. Where somebody that sells vacuum cleaners is going to know this is bullshit, or whatever is going to know it's bullshit, but it all sounds the same. So I think people don't give themselves enough credit to just trust their own bullshit detector from the jump. I don't know shit about cars, but if somebody's trying to sell me a fucked up, shitty car, just by how they sound, how they talk, what the offer is, how they're presenting it, I can probably say, this is probably bullshit. Or maybe I need to look in this a little bit more. So that waxes out a lot right there. It really does. That almost takes away every Google ad. It takes away, any ad you would see in a major health magazine. I mean, it takes away a lot of that stuff fast.
And I think what people need to realize too is, like, if you're not in the health and wellness space and to some capacity, what you're going to understand very quickly is that we're all saying, all the good ones are saying the same shit. Like, there's really not, there's no new information out there.
Yeah.
Like I think, what was it? Menno Henselman just put out a study about like training in the lengthened position. It's better for hypertrophy. We kind of knew that already. We knew that that stretch mediated hypertrophy was a real thing. We've kind of known it for 20 years. His study proved it. Okay, cool. So everybody gets on that bandwagon. So now everybody's doing lengthened partials overnight. And now there's 65 videos that are being produced on an hour basis showing you how to do lengthened partials. So I think I think people that are seeking information are seeking that magic bullet theory. Like, what is this one thing that's going to get me to the result that I've never had before? And it's got to be one thing, as opposed to my foundation sucks and I keep program hopping, or I keep diet hopping, or I keep drug hopping from one thing to the next. I don't give it enough time to ever really get good at it, because the body, if it comes to exercise, you have to get good at the fucking thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
So like, stop switching exercises every 6 weeks. Like, if you're barbell back squatting and that's your goal, like, I understand safety bar squatting to some extent for a while just to be able to get more load on. But if your competition is a barbell back squat, how the fuck is a safety bar squat going to help you? It's a totally easier position. It takes all the wrist flexion out of it. High bar, low bar is completely removed out of the equation. You can load more significantly. So you're essentially giving yourself this aid that's artificial. Now, again, if you use it strategically as a tool from an intermediary standpoint, where I can use this to enhance my load management techniques, great. But if that's the thing that you're squatting all the time to inflate your ego versus putting the barbell on your back, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to use the safety bar squat on competition day. So like, people don't understand how to like use all this information, because they're getting bombarded from 90 different people trying to sell them 90 different things.
Yes.
Like, I don't sell anybody shit. Like, I'm selling you really nothing. I'm just saying that like, coaching works if you lean into it. But if you hire a coach and then do nothing, then coaching doesn't work.
Yes. The other big giveaway would be if there's not a certain degree of self-accountability or responsibility in work, it's not going to work. And that's in the entrepreneur space, the fitness space, the strength space, all that. Nothing's easy.
No.
It's all there. But the problem that you run into in any of these industries is, as you were talking about, there's really nothing new. The basics are the basics. Everybody kind of knows the basics, but the basics are shitty marketing. And if that's all you're relying on is the basics to be able to do your marketing, right? So what people will do is they'll use the the nuance for the positioning, to be able to have the marketing, to be able to make the sale or whatever it's going to be. And to a degree, that's okay, as long as it's this nuance that's out there. And there is a base of the basics,
Sure.
right? And we see that a lot, because you'll see a lot of influencers and a lot of people online that here's what, sometimes it's overblown, that everything that they show is the nuance. But then when you peel back and look at what their actual program is and what they do, it's like, this makes up like 5% of what their program is, but it gets the most views and the most traction. But I wonder if it gets any clients. That's the trick, you know, because that's the trick, where if it is in that space and you're trying to, if it's a business thing, if it is in that space, sometimes I can make the argument that 5,000 followers is worth more than 500,000 followers, because there's a better connection. There's probably, they know you, they're following you because they know you. There's a relationship that's kind of built in there, and there's going to be more trust, where at that 500,000, most of those people are following because something was funny or something like that. Now it could be a higher end of a funnel, but it would still be the higher end of a big, very big funnel. The 5,000 would be a smaller end of the funnel. The 1,000 would probably even be the closer end to the funnel. Or fuck, if it's just 500 and they all know you, and you fell on hard times, like, look, man, I lost all my fucking clients because of whatever, you know, anybody need help? You'll probably get 10 clients like that.
Yeah.
Where try to get 10 clients out of 500,000 followers. It's the people need to, in this industry, need to understand it's not about the followers. It's not about the likes. It's about the relationship that you build with those people, because they become closer to, if it's business, the transaction in the client, you know, or the product or whatever it's going to be. And I like the example of, I think I just said this the other day. If we're to take, you know, a classroom and you got 40 people in the classroom and you're presenting to the classroom and they're somewhat qualified, but actually in your area, they're all qualified. It's health and fitness is better shape. And you were given the opportunity to speak to this classroom of people on how to become better, in better shape. Not a sales thing, but just how to be in better shape. The impact you can have on those 40 people is huge. Right. And you probably will get a client or two out of all that. Now, if you were to speak, not in the classroom, but now that school gymnasium. So now there's 500 people or whatever in there, and you're speaking to all them, that impact gets lessened a little bit. Right. So now it's not that school gymnasium. It's, you know, the Horseshoe at Ohio State. It's 100,000 people and you're able to speak. The impact a little bit less. Yep. Right. So why do people get so upset if they only have 100 followers? You see what I'm saying?
Well, I think they get upset because they're comparing themselves to these unrealistic standards also. And it happens all the time. It happens with followers on Instagram. It happens with my physique is not as good as his physique, or why does he squat so much more than me, but I've been in the sport for longer. That comparison game will be the easiest way to fuck up your own progress, because you're going to keep getting in your own head about what you're not doing. Yeah. When just like stay true to what you're doing. Like if you have a good system in place, maybe you just haven't gotten there yet, but you can't keep stopping along the road. Like I always use driving as my analogy for a lot of things. You know, it's like if you drive from A to B and on the way to B, you hit traffic, you don't just turn around and go home. You fucking sit through the traffic and you wait for it to break up, and then you finally get to your destination. It'll take you longer. So maybe the person that was driving before you didn't hit that traffic. They missed it by 20 minutes and they got to where they were going before you did. That's the same thing with anything else. Building your social media following, building your fucking powerlifting prowess, building your business, getting the best physique of your life. Like some people might have just started 10 minutes before you did, and that was the reason why they got there faster. Yeah. Somebody might have been more genetically gifted. Somebody might have had less stress. Somebody might have had a better situation than you did. But if you sit there and you constantly ask, why am I not getting to where I want to go because this person did? You're not evaluating the reasons of why you're not getting there. You're blaming your problems on somebody else that you manufactured.
I think if we step it back even one more step, you should define, why are you there in the first place? Right. So if you're on social media to be able to drive more clients, now you have, here's my main objective. So my main metric is going to be, am I getting clients from this? Yeah. right? So it doesn't matter. Now, maybe it does take 500 followers. Maybe it's 1,000 followers. I don't know. But that's that main metric. Now, if you're on there because you just want to become more popular, that's fine too.
Sure.
There's tons of people that want to do that. That's fine. But then if you're going to do those comparison models, compare with the people that are using that same metric, you know, is how they're going to determine what it was. Because some of the best trainers I know, some of the best strength coaches I know, some of the best powerlifting coaches I know are probably not on social media at all.
I believe that. I know that for a fact, because there's some people that I've met at conferences, like we were talking about before, where they're not on social media at all. And they have thriving businesses to where they have 4 or 5 locations and they have all these gyms and they've been doing it for 20 years. You never heard about them. Because now, like, there's so much clout on social media. Like, when my following count went from like 5,000 to 40,000, I had all these like coaches DMing me like, "How'd you do it?" I'm like, I just never stopped fucking posting. I post twice a day, every day, and it's usually something relevant that's helpful. Like, I'm either providing food for thought or I'm providing a solution to a problem. What are you doing on your social media?
You post some funny ass shit too.
I mean, I try to make people laugh. Like, I've been doing like the fucking Batman masks and shit lately because I'm a Batman freak. And, you know, I bought like a Batman mask and I bought a Joker mask and I bought a Bane mask and I try to do the voices and it's funny. But I'm also talking about some shit that's relevant.
Yeah.
It's literally just because I'm bored. Like, I don't like looking at myself constantly because I'm very, I don't know, maybe I'm like uber humble, but like, I don't like being in the limelight. Like, I host an event and I don't even speak at it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just like you, like I'm in the background.
So I don't think that's a bad thing though, because you're the host.
Right.
Like, you need to be there if something fucks up, goes wrong, accessible in the hallway to everybody that comes.
That's it. I'm walking around. I'm asking if you're having a good time. Is there anything you need?
Yeah.
How is this presenter versus this presenter? Like, are you enjoying this? Like, I'm not going to like direct the movie and want to star in it. Like, I think but that's what's happening in our world. Like, people just want like clout. They want accolades. They want to be noticed and recognized for something. But to me, if you earn it and you help somebody, like, everybody starts to become a trainer because they want to help people. It's not because they want to get rich.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was in finance. I was in a job where people were making $500,000 as 25-year-old kids. And within a year from that, they were millionaires. So like, I should have just stayed there if I wanted to be rich. I started in this business because I wanted to help the end user. So is my social media presence helping my audience in any way, shape, or form? Yeah, it is. So I'm doing my mission. If that means that I do it for free for a while, so be it. At some point, I will give out enough grace and enough good standing to where when people do need help, that they're going to come to me versus somebody else because I've been able to help them 10 times over without asking anything in return.
Yes.
Because
well, yeah, a business concept that's got lost in the modern day, but is still as relevant, if not more relevant, are referrals.
Oh my God.
Right.
Asking for referrals or saying, hey, like, the best thing you can do is tell 5 people about me.
Yes. So those referrals are how, when you first were training, probably most of your clients, guess where mine came from.
That's it.
You know, every person was 3 other people later down the line. You already got a satisfied customer. That's a testimonial that's walking around talking and has friends.
Yeah.
You know, and it's online, that testimonial has become a copy and paste, you know, of a testimonial.
I hate the fucking before and after pictures. Yeah. I hate the, like, you know, people are screenshotting their texts from their clients whenever their client says anything good to them. I get 1 million of those a day.
Yeah. If
I was to post 1 million stories about how my clients love me, my clients are supposed to fucking love me because I'm doing a good job.
See, those may work, but what I think would work better is after the client posts it, if you have a relationship with the client, you have a conversation with them, and then somewhere in that conversation, you strategically bring up, hey, do you have any friends that may be interested? And then boom, done, right? So that's almost like a guaranteed referral because people hang around with people that are like them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I go one step further. So if anybody ever DMs me asking me about coaching, I immediately do 2 things. I invite them on a free Zoom call to participate in what I'm already doing. So every week on Thursdays, I do some educational topic that my clients pick, and I spend 30 minutes educating them about it. And then they do a 30-minute Q&A with me. So like this week's topic on Thursday is going to be biomechanics and joint function. We're just going to spend 30 minutes talking about that because my clients were confused about, like, does the bicep flexor extend? Does the quad flexor extend? So I'm just going to go 30 minutes, nothing like crazy nuance, but just something that Gen Pop people. So I had a person DM me the other day and they're like, I'm curious about your coaching. I said, hey, listen, before I start like trying to like explain this to you, what's your email? I'll send you a Zoom link. Pop on Thursday and just see what I have going on. So now you can actually see what my world looks like and you can judge me based on that. And then further to that, what I'll do is I said, if you liked what you saw there, join my Facebook group. You'll see what the interactions between all the other people are. And if you want, I'll connect you to one of my current clients that I think would be similar to who you are, and you guys can chat. And I always ask my clients, I'm like, is it okay if I introduce you to this individual and then you just talk to them about your experience so far? So it's not like you're sending me a testimonial that I doctored up for you or gave you a script for. This is you having a human to human connection, basically like as my little foot soldier, because I've helped you out. Now you can go out and tell the world about what I do for you. Yeah. So that's a much warmer lead than me being like, let me sell you this, or come look at my testimonials, or look at all the results I've gotten, or look at all these before and after pictures. Because most people, and this is, I think, hard to hear, are not going to get the results that they want. When it comes to the Gen Pop, right? Like most strength athletes. No,
I would say everybody. I think it's true.
I mean, even most strength athletes, right? Yeah. If like, let's say they like Anthony Oliveira is a good example, right? The guy that, by the way, Anthony, if you're listening to this, thank you very much. This is happening because of you. But like a guy like him, he squats what, over 1,000 pounds. Most people will not squat over 1,000 pounds ever. I don't care how hard they fucking try. They can be on all the gas in the world. They can be the biggest person. They may never get there. So the reality is you have to be able to adjust your expectations accordingly. And if you want to do shit that Anthony does, you got to be willing to do all the shit that Anthony does. But most people aren't willing to do that. They see the tip of the iceberg. They want the tip of the iceberg. They forget about the shit that's below the surface. So I tell most people like, hey, you're signing up for an experience and a process. You're not signing up for a result. The result is on you. I can't guarantee your result. And I would never guarantee your result because that would mean I'm lying to you. And I'm promising you something I'll never be able to deliver because I can't do the work. So people have to understand that when they're signing up for coaching or they're buying a program or they're talking to the best coach in the market about trying to increase their strength, they better be willing to do what that person is asking of them if they truly do trust that their methods work. That's it. It's literally that simple.
You know, the testimonials are, I don't sell coaching, but the testimonials are a weird thing for me because now they're on the website, like product reviews or whatever. They are what they are. So I don't even read those. That's whatever those are. But if I have an event that I do or seminar that I've done or the small events that I do, when I send the surveys out for those, I purposely make it so they don't have to put their name. So it's anonymous. I do that because I want the most honest feedback without them feeling like they have to hold back, be nice. I want to make it better.
Of course.
Right. So the questions are even geared in such a way of the shortcomings and how to make it better. And there is a section where, write what you enjoyed and so forth. So then when I have all those in there and then I export it to the spreadsheet and all that, I don't have the name associated with the testimonial. So I think with Swiss, I had to do this, and with when I post the testimonials, but there's no name. Then I put at the very top, this came from an anonymous survey because of that, where granted it's a different service. If it was a service that I needed to actually have the name, I asked permission and all the other stuff to be able to have the name. But the testimonials were always a weird thing because they're doctored, they're changed. Most of them are fake. It's crazy, how I haven't done more than maybe 2 book reviews. There's not a lot. I don't do a lot of reviews and stuff like that, but I've had a lot of people ask me for reviews of things. And then when they email me and send me, there's pre-written, 10 or 15, which I guess it kind of would help because then I could change it and make it easier for me. But it's interesting because I wonder when I see that, because unless I really, really have read it, know it, then I have to really, so the way I look at things like that is I would have to be willing to personally, and this is how I was with the coaches that represent EliteFTS. I have to personally, if this goes south, even though I make nothing on it, I will personally refund the person if it was a referral that came from me. So I'm very fucking tight on who I'm going to refer because of that.
As you should be, because you're putting your name on it.
It's my name. It's my brand. It's not just it's everybody else's brand that's been associated with the company. There's a lot of things that are out there that weigh into that. So I have a different relationship with that than a lot of other people would have, because I would throw that back to a lot of the other people and say, now, when you do shit like that, if it goes south, will you refund it?
No, of course not.
They're like, fuck no, I'm not going to refund that. I'm like, well, then maybe you should think twice about either what it says, or doing it in the first place.
Or just be less transactional. Like, I had a meal prep company locally in San Diego reach out to me the other day, and they're like, would you like 5 free meals from us? I said, why the fuck wouldn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, everybody likes free shit. What's the catch? Well, you have to post a review about the meals. Okay. That's it?
Works. Yeah.
Cool. So they shipped me 5 meals. I ate them. I didn't like them. Super high in fat. A lot of sauce, just shit that I normally wouldn't eat. And I gave it all an honest shot. I'm like, and I left like this 40-second or 30-second video on my Instagram, basically tagging them and saying like, this is it. And then they're like, well, could you do another one and then make it look like this? And they send me like a 1.5-minute video that was all doctored up, professionally done, looked like it was done in a studio with like a script. I'm like, no, because that's not how I feel about your product. I said, if you need a convenient option and you don't want to cook, this isn't a horrible choice. Are you going to love it? I don't know. I didn't love it, but I'm also very particular and I like eating my own food. Like, well, you kind of didn't really make us look good. I'm like, because you guys weren't good. If the stipulation is give me an honest review, don't fucking offer people free food then. Or expect that not everybody's going to like your shit. Like, I didn't mind either. Like, some people came to my event in 2023 in March, and they didn't like certain aspects of it. Like, the presentations were too short. There was too many rooms for me to choose from. Cool. Like, tell me how bad I saw. In my check-in form on a weekly basis, I asked 2 things. Is this process overwhelming to you? And if so, how can I change it to make it more accommodating? What else can I be doing as a coach to further assist you? And I'm asking that on a weekly basis. Now, granted, it gets left blank half the fucking time.
Yeah.
But like, if you're not asking for that from your people, like, how are you ever going to get better as a provider of anything? Like, if you can't if you can't take an honest view of something from somebody, and I love the idea of anonymous, because you're right, that takes all the pressure off not being genuine. Because people do tend to want to play nice and they don't want to hurt your feelings.
I also will delay it too. Like, if you send it right out, you can play that. You can game it. Send it right after when they're still excited. It's better review. Wait a little bit. It's going to be a different review.
Agreed.
You wait a month, it's going to be a completely different review. You don't want to wait too long, or it's not going to be good at all.
They just won't even,
because they're just going to completely forget about it. But that food prep company kind of missed an opportunity there, because granted, they don't have to post it, but they missed the opportunity to reach back out to you to expand that narrative a little bit, because maybe there is something in there they could make better.
Sure. Or like, why didn't you like it?
Yeah.
That question was never brought up once. They saw the review. I tagged them in it, so they got the video, which I said, if you need convenience, this works, but it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
And I stated the reasons why. Mm-hmm. But they never bothered following up with me and asking me why I didn't like it.
Interesting.
They just begged for another review. I got another DM from them this morning when I woke up. Like, can you leave us another one? I'm like, the fuck do you want? Like, you want me to shit on you now? Like, now I'm actually going to come out and say, like, don't use these guys.
Yeah.
Because now you're just being annoying. But I think that's the problem, is we have a lot of, when it comes to health and fitness and this space in general, it's a very what can you do for me attitude versus what can I do for you? Mm-hmm. Like, at the end of the day, like, I consider us all customer service.
Oh, yes.
Like, we're customer service representatives. At the end of the day, we're a dime a dozen. And I'm not going to talk shit about EliteFTS, but let's be honest. You're not the only equipment manufacturer in town. You're not the only guy who makes parallel fucking bars. Mm-hmm. Other people do it. But you want to be the best at what you do. So how are you to do that? You're going to ask people, why are you buying other people's products versus mine? Is it quality? Is it price? Is it delivery time? Is it shipment? Is it customer service? And if you don't do all that due diligence, then don't be fucking upset when people don't buy your shit.
Yeah. Yeah. With your podcast, you've had a lot of guests on. I was going through, actually, I'm not going to pull them out, but I listed it out there. Over the past, at least in your recent memory, what are some things that you've picked up from those guests that has maybe changed your opinion on things?
You mean from like a technical standpoint?
Technical,
or from a procedural
anything.
So generally, like, I try to find some people that I may not always agree with.
Yeah.
We actually have a guy coming on who had a big nutrition company, and then he sold it very recently, and basically now he's retired. And him and my podcast partner 3 years ago got into it on Instagram about some shit. And now my podcast partner was kind of hesitant that I'm inviting this guy on. I'm like, dude, we can't constantly have people on our show that agree with everything that we say. We need some dichotomy. We need some discourse. We need to show people that like we're able to take it too, not just dish it out. So I would say that most of the times when we have guests on, I'm trying to learn what makes them good at what they do. So like we had a mindset coach on earlier this last week, and she does things completely different than I would ever do them, but that's her expertise. So what I do, like I actually use it as a learning experience for myself, because I'll kind of look at what they're doing and then I'll ask them a bunch of leading questions as if I was one of their clients. Like if I was going through this problem, what would you do? Like, and then that helps educate me. And it's kind of like fucked up because it's kind of like a free education. Like it's almost like I'm getting their coaching for free for 60 minutes, but they're giving it away anyway. So they're there, and it's not a secret. Again, not behind a paywall, none of this shit. Like I think all the good coaches out there are good servants anyway. But what I've recently been learning a lot is that, again, back to that same point I made earlier, there's no new information out there. All the good coaches are taking that same information that we've known for 100 years and repackaging it in a way that's unique to their voice. And the good ones and the reasons, well, I would say the successful ones and the ones that are either bigger or make more money do it because they have different offerings and product lines. So like what separates the reason why they're so successful is because they've either systematized stuff that other people haven't, or they've created ways to offer people other options. If they can't afford A, they can go to B. If they can't afford B, they can go to C. So they stay in that ecosystem for longer. So it's like the lifetime value of a client.
Yeah.
And that's what separates the really good coaches from the coaches that haven't quite figured it out, is because they don't know how to keep people in a non-predatory way. Because I want to say that, because I think it's important to distinguish the people that are doing it the right way with integrity and not like constantly forcing products down your throat, versus the ones who are like, hey, I have these 3 options. Obviously, this is the best option, but if you can't afford this one, you can try this one. And if that one doesn't work, you can try this one. Obviously, here you're going to have minimal touch points and you really don't get me much, but you understand that signing up.
Yeah.
So that's really, so what it's really done for me is it's reinforced that I know what I'm doing, which is kind of nice. I fall right in line with some of the people that I respect the most because I'm doing it very similarly to them, maybe just not as automated or with the same systems. But what I will say is it's shown me the value of communication when it comes to client problems. Like most people, again, don't give a fuck about their, like in my world, they don't give a shit if they're ever going to box squat 225. They just don't care.
Yeah.
They want to have a nice ass. How do you get a nice ass? Hypertrophy training. How do you support hypertrophy training? Quality nutrition. They don't care about any of that stuff because the wheels are going to fall off the bus on a weekly basis. And if I'm not there to support them, I can be the smartest coach on the planet. I can know everything about nutrition and training. But if I don't have the psychological management piece built into my skill set, I will never be able to help these people because they're going to be the ones that get in their own way. And I don't know how to talk them off that ledge.
Yeah.
So that's what I've really learned. I've learned that the communication side of this business is way more important than the technical side.
Well, I wonder, and you might be able to ask this because you've been doing this for a long enough period of time. When you do bring on a new client, how many coaches have they been with before they get to you?
It really depends. Sometimes they're wet behind the ears and they've never been with anybody. The fucked up part is I get a lot of clients that come to me because of bad coaching experiences from bigger groups where like they spoke to the head coach, but then they got one of their assistant coaches instead. And you know how it is. It'd be like if you were running your business and you hired somebody who you trusted, but they just didn't have the same skin in the game that you did.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it the way you do it. And they're not going to do it with the same passion you do it. And that's why I've always been hesitant to grow. Like I always tell people, like, I don't need a business coach because I know that I'm not going to scale to $250,000 a month. I don't give a fuck about the money. Like I need to make enough money to be able to afford my lifestyle, have a meal here and there, get on a plane every once in a while and pay my rent. Like I'm not trying to be one of these like figureheads and think tanks that makes all this money and has all these products and builds all this wealth. I kind of want to leave a mark. I want to help some people. And for me, if I'm doing that and I can do that in a very personal way without losing that connection, then I'm really happy.
Well, the reason I ask that is because when the whole online training thing started, hell, I was one bashing it. I mean, it was just being bashed left and right because it's hard to do, but over a decade, people have figured out how to do it. You know, from the jump, it probably was really fucking hard to do because when you're used to working with people in person and now it's got to be remote and digital, it's different, right?
Sure.
So skill sets have increased on the ability to be able to do that. And there's still going to be the people out there that just suck, you know, and, or they're just starting. I mean, there's that too. And whereas I can see people having bad experiences and, you know, moving up the chain. Right. So it's,
but it usually, the bad experiences, Dave, usually happen because the coaches got too big too fast. You know what I mean? So like a lot of these people come out of these coaching groups that they hired, usually because of some type of Instagram clout. Like, oh, this person must know what they're doing because they have so many followers.
okay.
Or they have this big business and they've helped so many people because they've had all these testimonials. But then again, they sign up and they lose all of that personal attention that was promised to them because it was never there in the first place. The reason why these coaches grow so big is because they have the ability to scale. How do you scale? Well, you scale by systematizing and automating.
Yeah.
What happens when you systemize and automate? You lose personal attention. So now client Rebecca doesn't become client Rebecca anymore. Now she becomes client 346.
Yeah.
Then you can make money off of her. She'll stay for a couple months, but she's not going to get what she needs. She's never going to get a fucking check-in on time. You're not available for her to ask questions ever. Like my phone is a fucking attachment to my hand at this point. Like I am looking, it's on silent all day long. I don't ever have a ringer or a vibrate on it, but I look at my phone all day. And it's either because I'm responding to somebody who's texting me something or I'm responding to a DM on Instagram. Those are the two things I toggle between. And what I'm really sick of is I'm seeing all these coaches online who are doing photo shoots at Starbucks with their laptop and they're so busy and I have to protect my energy and I have to be able to put boundaries around myself. It's like, no, when you became an entrepreneur, you gave boundaries up.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
Saturdays and Sundays are not yours anymore. Yeah. Like I'm so tired of this like fucking work-life balance argument. Like if you signed up, like if you want to have balance, go work an 8 to 5.
Yeah.
Go work at a fucking office, make fucking whatever wage they give you, be a company man, and you're going to be good. But if you want to run a business, you better be open 24/7, 365.
Oh, yeah.
Because your clients depend on you. And you may be the reason why she doesn't fucking binge eat, or you may be the reason why he doesn't tear his Achilles, or you may be the reason why this guy doesn't fucking die because he's been doing too many steroids. Like you are that person. And if you don't take that shit seriously, then you're not a very good coach. You're a fucking salesperson. And we have enough of those already.
Yeah. Well, the work-life balance is a weird thing because instead of being like business, health, whatever those things are, if it's your thing, it's one thing. Like your life is your business and your life is your family. It's all together. It's all one thing. So how do you have to balance? It's just one thing, right? Because it's your identity. It's all this. It's your identity. When I was competing, that was my identity. Like that, my whole world was that, but that didn't mean I didn't work. That didn't mean that I still didn't have a wife. It didn't mean I didn't have all these other things. You can't put things on a scale and sit there and say, this is this, this and this. You can if you work for somebody else.
Sure.
You know, you can definitely do that, but that doesn't work when it's yours, you know, because it's the way I look at it is, you know, the business, yeah, that's 24/7 unless you're sleeping, probably not, but
that's it. That's the only time I'm not answering messages.
You know what? I'm a husband fucking 24/7 too. I'm a father 24/7 too. You know, my health doesn't take a break. That's 24/7. So how can I say that my health is like 4 hours when my heart beats until I die? You know, that's 24, they're all 24/7, you know, and that's where I don't understand. And I worked for myself for almost my whole fucking entire life. So it's kind of always been that way to where I don't get what that is, but there's a lot of things I don't get either.
But you're wired differently, man.
And I understand that. Like, I don't know what anxiety is. I just get excited. It's probably the same fucking thing, you know, or if I start to feel anxious, I guess I'm excited. Like, why am I excited about this? You know, it's just, I don't understand certain things.
Like, but are you somebody, like I'm personally somebody who doesn't see problems. I see solutions. Are you somebody that's the same way?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously there's going to be whatever the issue is,
right?
But then my first question is this an issue? The second question is this going to matter in 5 years? Then the next question is, okay, what are the solutions? I'm not going to waste time on solutions if it's not going to matter in 5 years,
Sure.
or if it's not even an issue, because shit, there's so many per day. It's like, boom, here this comes. Is this really an issue? And if I don't know, I might ask somebody else, is this really an issue? And then kind of go from that. Now, is this an issue I have to deal with? Or is it an issue that's really not my department, somebody else needs to deal with? So I have that opportunity, because if it's a customer service, I got people that handle customer service way better than I can.
And you trust them.
Then I can do that. But I've learned a long time ago that you have to operate that way, as I said earlier, because you're going to miss the big one, right? Because there's going to be a big one. And if you're too wrapped up in all these other ones, that big one can knock you the fuck out. I'm also paranoid, so I think every entrepreneur is just 1 month away from being out of business in their own head.
Do you that's an interesting point that you make, because I've always operated from so it's called, mindset coaches out there will say it's a scarcity mindset, right? Like you're always scared that you're going to lose the thing that you built. And that's, you work with your back against the wall. I like being in that place. Like, sure. I don't like sitting on top of the mountain looking down on everybody. I like being down here, being a little bit of the underdog and looking up and knowing that I still got some room to go.
Sure.
Do you feel like you kind of sit in that place where like, that?
Yeah, but I don't know if I would call it scarcity, because I do think there's enough abundance for everybody to succeed.
Sure.
So I don't think it's scarcity from the standpoint of, I can only make what I can make by taking what you could make.
Yeah. I'm not taking off your plate to eat my food.
No, I think all plates can grow at the same time, but I am paranoid, that things can go south fast, and they go south way faster than people think it can, health included.
Sure.
Right. So that I didn't realize until I got older and things did go south. And it's like, fuck, I took this for granted. I can't take this for granted like I do like my business. I never take for granted, because it doesn't take people very long to be out of business.
Sure.
So it's, how do you, systemize, protect, how do you build all that around all those things? But it becomes a matter of, again, what is important, because I'll put out, the first time this really, really resonated with me was when I was still writing for T-Nation at the time, and I was communicating with Tim Patterson here and there and different things. And we got hit with a legal issue, and it was kind of the first real major one that we had. And it was a major one. Looking back, it's still a major one. And man, just so fucking consuming, man. I spent so much time just deep diving, doing research on who the other party was, because it was fraudulent too, on who the other party was, and then spending all this time doing all this kind of shit. And then when I was speaking to him about it, because he dealt with something similar in the past, he let me talk for how I'm wordy, let's say he let me talk for an hour bitching and ranting about all this other kind of stuff. And then made a statement that I'll never forget. And it's like, Dave, you will not go out of business because of this, but you will go out of business because you're spending all your time consumed with this, that you're not going to spend the time consumed with the things you need to do to keep your business growing and moving forward. Let the attorneys do what they're supposed to do. Put your insight and your time into it when you need to put your time into it, and then put it away. Easier said than done.
Sure.
I learned how to do that over a period of time, but he was 100% right. Because had I stayed on that track I was for that first, because this went over a year and a half, had I spent my time on that like I was that first month or whatever, I wouldn't have a business right now. There's no doubt in my mind, because the marketing would have fell. Well, I only had 4 staff. I mean, we're not big. I think the bottom would have fell out because of that. And you got legal expenses, so it would have fell out even faster because of that. So it turned into this, oh shit, now I need to figure out how to get more capital, because this wasn't covered under insurance in any way. So now I got to build the capital to be able to pay the legal fees, to be able to deal with all this kind of stuff. And that was a big one, but that made all the other ones later that would come up reinforce that so much. Like, okay, how much time is this going to matter? Is this just that thought process from that? And then what can I now, with that issue, I know more about that issue now than pretty much anybody I know in the industry because of all the stuff I had to go through with that. So it, while expensive as fuck, it prevented way more cost and expense all the years after, because now I know how to handle that. You know, I know how to preemptively prevent that so it never happens again and all those type of things from that. Had he not said that, I don't know where, like I said, I probably would have figured it out one way or another, because it's just how I'm going to figure it out. You know, jump in the deep end, figure out how to swim. Yeah. You know, figure it out. But
that just shows you the value of learning from your mistakes. And I think people are so terrified to do anything these days that they don't, you know, what's the best diet? What's the best workout plan? What's the best? Like, there is no best.
Yeah.
There's no best. It's what can you do and what can you keep doing? So I hate the word best. Like, even like this whole, like, even like optimization is starting to become like this bastardized term. Like, don't be afraid to fuck up and experiment a little bit. I'm not saying like switch things up on an hourly basis and keep doing all this bullshit, but at least like have some faith that if you just do something for long enough, you're either going to fucking suck at it and you'll get better at it, because everybody sucks at whatever they start at. Everybody. I don't care what it is. Like,
of course.
Like, you have to be bad at it until you get good at it. So whether that's lifting, whether that's bodybuilding, whether that's business or life, you have to be open-minded enough and be willing to fail. And failure is not a scary thing. Not at all.
It's necessary.
I mean, I constantly use a quote in all my presentations where success is not final, failure, or success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's Winston Churchill said it. But it's the ability to keep going that counts, and that's all that matters. Like all of life is just basically just one big decision after the next big decision, and what is the cost benefit of those decisions? Yeah, that's all it is. Like,
well, those are undefinable words. Like, define success for me. Right? Most people can't. No. Define failure for me. You know, because on the furthest end of failure is dead. Dead, yeah. Right. So
that's
yeah. So now you're working towards two metrics which are not definable. Yeah. Where if I was training for a 900-pound squat, that's a definable metric.
Yeah. Failure is you not getting the 900-pound squat.
Yeah. So that becomes this weird territory where going to, you know, dieting and health, kind of like what we've been talking about this whole time, you're not going to get from poor health to good health without a lot of pivots. Yeah, which means 90% of the time you're actually going to fail, but you're failing forward. Yep. Right. You don't succeed forward. I could actually say you probably succeed backward. Right.
Yeah, because there's a little bit of comfort in success.
Yeah. Yes. And it's because things are fluid. They constantly change. You know, you gotta, in strength training, I call it, you have to learn how to auto-regulate everything. Yeah. You know, everything's got to pivot. Everything's got to change in business. Everything's got to pivot. Everything's got to change. You need to know what those pivots and changes are. Most of the pivots aren't going to work. So you pivot again and you pivot again until you find something that works. Then it will work for a little bit. Then guess what? It ain't going to work. Yeah. Then you got to pivot, you know? So that's where you have to have this really, you have to look at those two words differently. Are we moving toward the objective, or are we moving away from the objective? And what is the objective?
Yeah, I was going to say, is the objective even defined?
Yes.
Because so many people start shit and they don't even understand what they're doing. Like, I have such a long conversation with all my clients. Like, what is it that you really hope to achieve? Like, I know you say fat loss, but how is that fat loss going to make you feel versus how you're feeling now? Like, explain to me like what your day-to-day level of fulfillment and satisfaction is. And then tell me, do you think really losing 30 pounds is going to make you more fulfilled or satisfied? Because if not, is it worth the fucking work? Can you be just like, okay, if you're unhealthy, sure, let's fix that. But if you're not like pathologically unhealthy, if you're just somebody who's like trying, like, aesthetics to me is a vanity thing. Like, you're just trying to look better because you think it's going to gain some level of respect that you didn't have before. Somebody's going to like you more. Like, nobody gives a fuck. Like, just what we were talking about. Like, nobody cares about your 900 squat, but your 4 buddies in the gym. No girl cares. No employer cares unless you're going to work in a place that's a facility that wants you to have a 900-pound squat. So is the work that you're about to put into this really long and painful endeavor worth it? And is it going to change who you are for the better? Because if it's not, don't start.
Exactly.
It's not worth it. Like, it's not going to rewire the dysfunction you have in your head about your lack of confidence as a human being.
Well, I think that's the huge point right there, is the confidence, right? Because if you're moving towards this objective and then you see that you're getting a little bit closer, even if it's a little bit, that slowly builds confidence.
It should. And that should be the thing that you hang your hat on. That's why I think doing shit imperfectly and just starting, whatever it is, and just fucking up at it should then be able to build this layer of confidence that you didn't have before. And that's the biggest achievement in the world, because if you can do that repetitively over the course of a few years, you walk out of there being a completely improved person all across the board. And now you're really capable of anything there is to do.
Sure. I mean, most people fuck up because they don't start.
Yeah. Or it's really more frustration and disappointment. Like, that's a really ugly place to be. Like, I've been one of those people that's been like terrified to do this, or this. And I used to always do, like, in the easiest context is like, I used to always be terrified of like talking to girls at bars because I was afraid of rejection. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not big enough. I don't have enough money. Why would she ever talk to me? But then when you realize that, like, every girl at the bar is used to being hit on 50 times over. So as long as you don't go up to them with the expectation that you're trying to like them or they're trying to like you, if you just walk up to them in a conversational, non-threatening, fun manner, guess what? 9 out of 10 times, they'll probably enjoy that interaction. And at the worst case scenario, at least you had a 5-minute conversation that was pleasant.
Yeah.
Versus I'm walking up there like, I'm the fucking man. Nobody can be better than me. This girl's going to love me after the first 5 words I say. It's like, no, that's not how it works. Like, but that's that transactional communication style that so many people now today have. Like, if it's not making me money or if it's not benefiting me in any way, I'm not even going to bother. As opposed to, like, how many conversations have you not had? How many things did you not learn because you closed off the opportunity?
Mm-hmm. Or didn't see it.
You
know, because the opportunities are abound, right? And that's another thing with this just stress in general, is if you're always too stressed, you don't know how to maintain the stress. Maybe they need a therapist, something like that. If you're always too stressed, you're always too clouded, you may not see, because all you can see is this, but there's opportunity right here, right? But because you're too stressed out about stupid shit, you're not able to see it's right there, you know. And it's an awareness thing, because we all still get stressed, and you know, it's all that other stuff but who can dial it back to see what am I missing because of the state that I'm in, right?
You don't win any badges of honor for being the most stressed out person. Right? Nobody's rewarding you for being stressed out. Like, I mean, I'm not like one of these.
Well, actually, I'm trying to think. Is there an Instagram page where somebody's just stressed all the fucking time?
Yeah, David Goggins. He fucking runs 100 miles and breaks his shins, and he's like, "Well, you're a pussy if you don't run as much as I do." And like, I get like he gets people fired up, but I fucking hate motivation. I really do. Like, I think motivation is one of these manufactured feelings that doesn't last very long at all. It's like an orgasm. Like, you feel it for 30 seconds. It's great. And it's like, well, now what? Because most people can't stay motivated constantly. Like, I'm not fucking motivated to work out. I'm not motivated to cook every single meal. I do it because I know that the alternative is me not feeling good. That's really why I do it. I lift and I eat the way that I do is because I want to look better than every 40-year-old. That's my why, because I found that why and it works for me. But if you can't find that thing that keeps you in the game for long enough to get the thing that you want, you can't keep relying on motivation. And the only way that you're going to get motivated is by actually taking action. So I don't like all these rah fucking motivational speakers, the Tony Robbins of the world and all these. Like, it's cool, like, to walk into that room and get like fired up for 15 seconds. But then that's Saturday. And then Tuesday you wake up and your dog just shit on the carpet. And your wife's late for work, and now you got to get your kids going on your own, but now you're late for work, and where did that motivation go?
And you guys still didn't do anything.
It's all gone.
You know, in business, action matters.
And everything.
You know, so that's the key thing with that is, and as you said earlier, you're going to suck it no matter what you do. So just understand you're going to suck, but you're going to suck less, you know, each time that you do it.
Reps,
you know, and I guess determine if that's what you want to do, if that's what you want to be good at. Because you don't want to, you know, spend a lot of time trying to be good at something that you never wanted to be good at in the first place.
Well, that's the whole, like, following your parents' dreams versus doing the thing that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like, I went into finance because my parents wanted me to go into finance. Like, I was the first person in my family to go to college. It's because we were immigrants, and it would be like, oh, well, you're going to college. It's a big accolade for us. Meanwhile, that's probably not what I should have done. I probably should have immediately gone into either exercise science, or I could have been a fucking firefighter at 18 and made way more money and had a better career and not been a fucking asshole. But I didn't know any better because I was following what other people told me I should have done. But I also wasn't mature enough to have a passion.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know what the thing was that I wanted to do. And I think a lot of people don't spend enough time auditing, like, what is it that fires you up? And it's got to be something a little bit like, I think that whatever fires you up has to help other people. I really do. Like, I think that should be everybody's purpose in life, is like, what mark am I leaving on this planet? Because at some point I'm not going to be here. Am I leaving a trail of shit and garbage, or did I positively impact most of the lives that I interacted with? Ask yourself that question. Is your pursuit a noble one? And is it helping others? And if you don't give a fuck about helping others, you're a huge piece of shit.
Well, I think that they're going to find that they're going to feel better about themselves when they do.
Of course. And and it's not a selfish thing to do. Like, I get fired up when somebody
Who cares if it is? Like, if it is a selfish thing to do, who cares?
That's true. Because you still net positively impacted somebody.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Like, I actually do think that, like, servitude does fill my cup, but it does, there is like a little selfish twinge to it. Like, I do get a little fired up when somebody like DMs me on Instagram, is like, oh, well, your advice helped me lose 40 pounds and we never even coached together. I think there's something cool about that. Versus like, I paid you money and I was in your ecosystem and then I got results. Like, here I was just giving you free information. You put it into action on your own. I didn't even help you do that, which is fucking cool as shit. And I still was able to indirectly impact your life positively. And I think a lot of times people just don't even consider that. And what you're doing, like, you could be motivating and inspiring other people to act.
One of the seminars I did, I can't remember which one it was, several years ago, I just thought, you sometimes you do seminar, just shit comes out, especially with me, shit just comes out. And I did a little rant about, what you're speaking about. A lot of people think that life is a medicine ball rebounder, right? So you got this 40-pound ball, you throw it into the rebounder, boom, it comes back to you, right? So what they don't understand is, and I can use EliteFTS as an example because we've had 1 million pages of content and put a ton of shit out there. It's always been free. It's always been complimentary. I need to change my verbiage on that, because free, people don't think there's value. Complimentary, there's value.
Sure.
Right. Just in how the mind is that. But so with all that content, all the Q&As and all those things that go out there, all the podcasts, all this stuff, I'm throwing softballs. Right. And you're just throwing them into the void, but the fucking balls aren't coming back. Right. You're just throwing them out. You're just throwing them out. You're just throwing them out. And you can get frustrated. I've been frustrated, super frustrated, because it's like, fuck, there's a lot of fucking balls. These balls cost money. Just throwing it all out there. Time. Yeah. But the mistake there is you think that is the ball that's going to come back. Meanwhile, you're not paying attention to all the other people that you didn't throw the ball out to, that are your clients, that are your customers, that are your supporters, are the ones that are liking and leaving reviews in the podcast and help building the business. Just because you throw that ball back doesn't mean the universe is going to give that one back to you.
Yeah.
All these other ones are the result of throwing those things out. So you got to stop thinking that it's a fucking medicine ball rebounder and everything that you throw out is going to come back from that ball.
Yeah.
Right. It comes back in other ways, right? And those other ways can be financially, they can be your health, it can be, how you look at life, how you approach life, all these different things. And that's what I think with content that you put out and a lot of these other people put out, you can get frustrated, especially because you make your business doing this too. So if all you did was throw content, and it's all good content, and then you don't have any fucking clients because of Instagram or whatever it's going to be, but yet you have 30 clients, that joined over the past 4 months that maybe never saw any of your shit. That's the universe, and I strongly believe this, rewarding in a way, the shit that you put out into it, because you make the world better. That's how this works. And people are too fucking fascinated on what that ball is, that they put out. And it's the wrong way, to look at it, because that way there in this world of digital media content is going to frustrate the fuck out of people, and they're not going to see the real picture there, you know, and that was kind of my rant with all that.
But it's also commoditized too. Like we're a dime a dozen. Like anybody that's putting out content on Instagram or doing whatever we do, we're amongst a large group of people that are also doing it. So we can't get mad that not everybody's resonating with our message. I don't stop posting because somebody didn't comment on my shit. I don't stop posting because somebody only gave me 200 likes versus 1,000 likes. I can't, because if I did, then I would be going against why I started.
Well, there's a selfish part too, because it's with your post, you're putting out like a paragraph or something like that. Forget about all that. You have to think of what you want to write.
Yeah.
Right. So you're reintroducing thoughts into your brain that you've had. You're better concise. You're making those thoughts more concise. So just the act of what you're doing to be able to put that out is making you a better coach to the clients that you have.
Absolutely. Right.
So the side effect, that's the main value, the real value, right? The side effect value is anybody else that was to read it to be able to come back. See what I'm saying? So
yeah, no, you're right.
You can validate that just by the power of journaling, that, you know, people will keep journals and stuff like that to get their thoughts out of their head, be able to put it down. That's one way to have like a therapist without a therapist, you know, and that kind of thing there is anytime you can write or put out content that's in a discipline that you're trying to be better at, it forces you to have to look at things in a different way, make it more concise, or even look at topics that you normally wouldn't look at to be able to write something different. That you're educating yourself.
Yeah.
Which makes you better at servicing the client.
Absolutely. It's practice. It's just all you're doing is like, all my posts come from usually a place of conversation. Like I've had that conversation with a client in the past, and then I just remembered it for a second and I just blotted out a post. And I don't know if you've seen any of my stories, but every morning my routine is the same. I wake up at 4:35 a.m. I go take a dump. While I'm taking a dump, I post my post, and then as the post is loading, or I'm like following it up on Facebook, I take.
Wait, you're filming yourself taking a shit?
I take a picture in between my legs on the floor, and I do this. I've done this every day I literally have like a highlight reel that says toilet talks, and then I write something that bothered me within the last 24 hours. Mm-hmm. So like today, I talked about how like. It's not that you should be afraid of carbs. You should be afraid of the carbs that you tend to overeat.
Yeah.
Like I bet that you wouldn't be afraid of like rice, potatoes, vegetables, and fruit. You're probably afraid of cookies, chips, cake, and snacks. So yeah, that's a valid fear because that shit's hard to stop eating. But you shouldn't be afraid of real carbs and real non-processed foods because they're not the enemy. So like it's just little shit like that. But I show up daily. It may not be the most helpful thing in the world in that moment, but it came out of my head genuinely that moment. And I happen to use my fucking socks and underwear as a background, and it kind of works.
That works.
It is.
Any topics that you wanted to talk about I didn't bring up?
No, I mean, we kind of covered like the event space. Like, I'm not going to use this as a platform, but like I started the event that I started because I just see so many events missing the mark, and if anything, if there's any coaches that are listening to the podcast, I know there's a lot of lifters and meatheads that like this stuff, but like, if you're a coach or you're starting out to be a coach, I want to put out a message out there that is basically educational in nature. Like, stop worrying about the fucking money in this business. Like, if you're good at what you do and you help people, you will make money. Like, absolutely, unequivocally, there's no way that you can succeed if you truly care about people. If you care about people because it's a dollar sign in your pocket, it's not going to be as genuine as the people that are doing it because they really give a shit. Now, at some point, you're going to get rewarded for it. Like, I mean, I've gotten to a point now where my business has gotten pretty good, and hopefully, knock on wood, it stays that way. But like, that's all I care about. Like, I care about helping the end user. If it pays for my lifestyle, great. At some point, like, hopefully my event grows and it keeps getting bigger, because the purpose of it was to educate coaches, to provide an education to them that they didn't elsewhere be able to source. So that's why I did it. And then, I mean, that's a passion project. And then I guess the other thing that I wanted to maybe leave your audience with, and it's a cause that I've kind of gotten somewhat serious about. So there's, I don't know if you saw the movie Sound of Freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
So I went and saw that. I mean, I kind of knew about the whole human trafficking thing for a while, but I didn't really take it seriously. And whatever it was about that movie kind of like fired me up a little bit. And it wound up that one of my clients is associated to an organization in Miami called No More Tears. And they are actually boots on the ground fighting human trafficking. So NoMoreTearsUSA.org is an organization that's based out of Miami that helps the survivors of human trafficking. And they help retrieve victims of human trafficking. And they set up so the way that you donate to the organization is you get to actually pick where your money goes. So if you want to go into mental health, they have therapists on staff. If you want to go into physical health, they help people rehab from injury that happened during the course of their trafficking. Job placements, apartment placements. And some of these people are coming from all over the world. So it's a cause that I've started to like pick up and be passionate about. And the other thing is, I guess Allie was friends with the guy who was portrayed by Jim Caviezel in the movie. And I guess she's got a loose tie to them. And they have this opportunity where you can actually go on stings with them and raids with them, which would be the fucking most badass thing. Like there's nothing, like I'm not a violent person by any means, but if you were ever to put me in a room full of fucking traffickers and I was able to do whatever I want, like there's some evil shit that's happening in there, and I would have no problem decimating those people. So I'm hoping that at some point the universe gives me the opportunity to go on one of these raids. And listen, if I get shot on the way doing it, that's not a bad way to go out.
Yeah, you just got to rehab your Achilles, right?
Yeah,
you're not going to be worth a fuck right now.
I mean, I could hold a shotgun.
This is true. This is definitely true. When's your next event?
March of 2024.
Okay, and they can find out about that through your Instagram.
Yeah, so it's realcoachessummit2023.com. I'm the asshole who put 2023 in the website name and then doesn't know how to
change it.
No, like I guess I could buy another domain name, but so forever it's going to be called Real Coaches Summit 2023.com. And it's not just for coaches. Like if you're an end user of information, like Joel Jameson is going to be there talking about strength and conditioning. Jason Brown, who does like conjugate training, he's going to be there. So there's a lot of people that just, if you want to go learn some shit that you didn't know, all food and booze is included in the ticket price. We have a good time. It's fun. It's Vegas. Hotel rooms are cheap as shit. It's like $110 a night. So it's an easily accessible thing. And for what you're paying for a ticket, like like right now, I think tickets are $748. But for all food and booze, I think that's a great deal.
Yeah, definitely. How many days is it?
It's you get there on a Sunday night. It's 2 days of education. Then you leave on Wednesday morning.
Okay.
It's a Monday and Tuesday.
I want to thank you for coming out. This has been a great time, great conversation. Any final thoughts?
No, man. I've been an Elite FTS disciple for fucking 12 years. The fact that I'm sitting at this table is like so surreal to me. And the thing I wanted to tell people is like, I never imagined in my life that becoming a coach would lead me to these opportunities. And the fact that I get to do this today, like I was telling everybody in my life, and obviously, unless you're in this business, they don't know who you are. But I was telling everybody, I'm like, Dave Tate DM me on Instagram and asked me to come on the podcast. I thought he was fucking spamming me.
Like a troll.
And then he's like, no, this is really Dave. And I was just like, fucking, it would be like Denzel Washington inviting me out to dinner. And I just want to thank you for having me out here, man. I really, I can't thank you enough. And I just can't believe that I got this opportunity.
Thank you. I mean, you're doing great things. That's why you're out here. Guys, thanks for listening. We're done. You guys are selecting Merrick for your telehealth platform needs. They have a couple different ways that they go about doing this. The first is through a self-selected experience. So there's a table talk panel, which is the full panel. That would be the panel that I personally get twice a year. That's checking everything. You name it, it's all there. The other panel is a checkup panel with a guided optimization. You're connected with a patient care coordinator, and the patient care coordinator will meet with you to determine what your needs are, thing to be able to help optimize your health or mitigate without judgment. So the discount code again is Table Talk Merrick Health for all your hormone optimization and performance needs. This is Dave Tate from EliteFTS. Last year, we partnered with Ken Kanakin to co-host the Swiss Symposium. It's built on hypertrophy and sport medicine for strength athletes and practitioners to come together in one place, which will be the Columbus Hilton at Easton. You are going to learn how to level up your training based upon the success and failures of others. You have to stay on top of your game if you want to be able to make the success and move forward at the pace that you want. Just to name a few of the presenters that will be presenting, we're going to have Matt Winning, Brian Carroll, Eric Serrano, Jim Wendler. That's just a few. These experts will be presenting on low back injury and prevention, exercise selection, as well as a business, steroid recovery, and restoration panel. If you want to network with one of the experts that we have presenting, we're going to have people there to be able to help you do that. To register for the Swiss Symposium, go to the EliteFTS.com website, look for the banner on the homepage, click that, we'll see you there. One of the ways that you can support the podcast is by purchasing or picking up our limited edition apparel. The shirt that I have on right now is one of the only shirts that we've brought back for a second time. Normally we'll never do that, but the only reason we brought this one back for a second time is it sold out within 6 hours. So we brought this one back. We also got a second one that we just dropped. It's our, I guess, just Halloween edition shirt. Go to EliteFTS.com or go to the link in the description. This really does help us out because this directly supports the Table Talk podcast. Thank you guys. Enjoy the show.